Welcome, everybody. This is our first episode for our fourth season of Campfire Talks. Campfire Talks is a regular series that we've been putting together by the camp support team. This particular team is headed up by PETA. PETA, if you want to unmute and say hi, please do. Thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. To help keep this project going, and to all of our volunteers on the team. After our speakers this evening, first we're going to be talking with our invited speakers about lessons they learned for the 2023 season. After that presentation and discussion, you'll have some time to participate in a facilitated discussion in one of 3 breakout rooms, so you can share your experience and those lessons that you learned with everyone on the call. If you're not a speaker, please mute your mic and be respectful in your participation. Share the air, be present, and speak from your own experience. Please feel free to ask questions or share your experiences using the chat or in the breakout rooms later. After the breakout rooms close, we'll be reading your feedback again into the call from the chat. So let's get started with an initial poll for everyone to take. Puppy, if you can get that, great. So which of the 10 principles did you apply most in this year's burn? And then I can't see the poll results. So Puppy, can you read out what our answers were? Oh, great. Okay, so communal effort looks like the biggest one, followed by radical self-reliance. Right on. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our invited speakers. First, we have Moore and Major Trouble, who founded the BRC Snow Club in 2021 as a social club for burners and their friends to connect around a shared passion for snow sports. Since then, their online community has grown to over 1,600 members worldwide. And in 2022, they brought BRCSC to the playa as a 12-person theme camp, offering après-ski vibes and snowball fights. Last year, they quadrupled their headcount to bring the expanded and improved Narbar and the first ever ski slope to Burning Man. Now in their 3rd year, they are looking forward to the next evolution of the slope, which may include additions like a jump and or jib feature, as well as expanding our off-playa offerings to continue to grow their community. Next we have Next we have Yurian Timur from Feed the Artist, which was founded in 2007 and was one of the very first food camps on the playa. FTA's mission is to feed the artists during Build Week when they are out on the playa building their art. Once Build Week is over, they focus their attention on the broader Burning Man community via their late night food court, where they feed as many as 1,000 people per night. They are a camp of 85 doers from all over the world who work together in their kitchen to create delicious meals for the community, and in doing so, create a tight-knit family of their own. Service and community are what FTA is all about.
Right. Thank you for having me tonight.
Hi, Yuri. Last but not least, we have Illumination Village, which is a thriving hub of 250 villagers with a membership of 1,500 dedicated souls. Their village serves as a haven for hardworking artists, proudly contributing to more than 400 public works of art to the Burning Man landscape, including the iconic creations like the Flaming Lotus Girls and the 2023 Elder Mother. Wicked Truth, aka Joey Delgado, is a co-mayor of Illumination Village with Priscilla Hernandez, who has always loved creating art and a community around love, respect, and inclusivity. She's an artist with the Flaming Lotus Girls and a resident DJ for the Heavy Petting Zoo, all while being a mom to 2 loving boys. She believes it takes a village in every aspect of her life and loves the community she has helped build in the Bay Area. So let's get started. I'd like to hear from all of you, if possible. What kinds of things went right for you this year? What did you learn, and what would you like to share to pass on in terms of what went well?
Okay, I'll start. Because and I know it's an open group conversation, but I wanted to say what went really well for Illumination Village this year, and I'll have Priscilla and I jump in on this together. But we were placed out in F&G in the boonies, and Illumination Village got a little complacent. So I started having weekly meetings with somebody I met from the virtual Burner Man community, but it just happened to be my placement rep for 3:00. And she was just instrumental in helping us turn the big ship around. And then I also worked with another person who was a seasoned burner. She didn't camp with us, but her name was Alyssa Guler. And she helped me to disseminate information from Burning Man through your Campfire Talks that you guys had, Ask a Placer video, to understand what we needed to address to make changes within our community. And then we just had, I had my weekly meetings with Miranda. And then I also had, we have weekly Zoom meetings with the camp leads, Discord, Slack. So that's what we did. Priscilla, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we literally were a dark hole, and that's how we got placed out in the boonies. So we had to fix it. So Mark, our previous mayor, designed the carnival, which showcased all of our fire art on Esplanade and 3:00, and then we had some art on the playa as well. So we were able to pull in so many people, and with 24/7 interactivity scheduled with volunteers, we were able to really have enough coverage for that type of for the type of 24/7 fire activities that we had. Yeah, I think the next slide shows the picture of what it looks like. One more. Ta-da! Yeah.
So the Campfire Talk said 5. And during that talk, they said 5 people. They expected 5 hours, which is their rule of thumb. And so we have 250. That just means 24/7.
24/7. So it was a culture change. We needed everyone's buy-in. So yeah, thank you.
Right on. Congratulations for burning brighter this year. Does anybody else have some pluses or positive lessons that you took back?
I would say from the perspective of Feed the Artists, just the community we have and had this year, and the leadership team and all the planning that took place really paid off. Usually our setup team starts arriving at midnight on Monday of setup week, and obviously nobody could arrive until Wednesday. And by that time we had 40 people, and we built the camp in 24 hours, which is saying something, because our camp is very, it's very infrastructure heavy, because we have a full commercial kitchen. And we fulfilled our mission and our newly expanded mission of feeding even more artists, because no matter how many artists we feed during Build Week, there's always the need for more. And so we were able to accomplish that, even with all the elements being as challenging as they were this year.
Nice. Okay, more in major trouble. Are you going to get in on that?
Absolutely. I mean, we brought a ski slope to the playa and actually pulled it off. Nice. That definitely went right. And to make that even better, we actually had no serious injuries on the slope either, which I consider a huge plus. And
another thing is that this group initially started not at Burning Man. Dylan started a Facebook page where we were connecting burners who liked snow sports, and it grew very quickly. And so that's why we decided to bring it as a camp the first year, 2 years ago. And we started really small, and we grew to from 13 to 45 members this past year. And so community was really interesting as a camp, bringing in a lot of new people, but people were also passionate about snow sports and what we were doing. So we really tried to build that. One thing that we did that went really well was all of our shifts like basically ended at 8:30 or 8 o'clock. So we said around 8:30, 9 o'clock, let's all meet in a specific area in camp. And anyone who wants to go out together, let's all go out together, at least like plan a time to go out together. And that allowed people to go out in different groups and really find community and bond with each other. So that was something I thought went really well.
Nice. Was there anything in particular that you attribute to there being few accidents and injuries on your slope?
Well, one, we every single time we talk about the slope or post about it anywhere online, the very first thing that would happen is somebody commenting, "Hey, remember the wedge?" Which, if you don't remember the wedge was basically it looked like it was a 60-foot tall, 45-degree slope of AstroTurf that went straight into the playa, and became very, very famous for the injuries that were attributed to it, some of which were actually pretty horrific. With that in mind, we like this community and our people are everything to me, and I didn't want to take safety as kind of a third level concern. We wanted to make sure that people were as safe as possible. So the material we used for starters is not it's not like a heat conductor the same way that AstroTurf is. And then we also did kind of sobriety checks at the bottom of the slope and reality checks at the top of the slope. So if you got up there and you weren't feeling quite as confident, that's all right. We could find a way to get you down in a safer way. And then lastly, we didn't try to go over the top with the slope angles. We did enough to get people down. Maybe next year we can go a little steeper, but yeah, at the end of the day, it worked out well for us.
Right on. Okay. It's good to hear about all the things that went well. And please, if you think of any more, please share as we're going along. But also, I'm going to switch now to some lessons learned that we need to take to a different level. Burnout is a very real thing with village and camp leads. What might you consider shifting for the future so that you as camp leads or village leads aren't burnt out in the future? We're going to talk about this more in the breakout rooms too.
Yeah, I can start with this if you guys would like.
Okay.
Yeah, so our village is large and we have the 24/7 interactivity that we had to, I don't want to say comply with, but Esplanade, we want to make sure that we're really on all the time. And we found that we need more support so our plan for next year to avoid burnout is to make sure that we have kind of 6 different groups of people that are planning throughout the year. And we're going to break it down into kind of co-lead positions. So we're going to have mayors. So we're going to ensure that the co-leads are going to be day mayors, night mayors. So someone is always wearing that I'm in charge kind of hat. If anything were to happen, you go to this person, they have a walkie, any issue can be resolved. Grid, we have a really amazing grid team, grid leads, but there's only a handful of them. So we need to expand that. I mean, we have 250 people. If we were to do 20 per group, we'd be really successful. So these would also be the go-to people, and they would be scheduled over the 7 days. So, there's more people. Fire leads, have the ability to put out the fires if needed. And if there's new artists that are bringing fire, they're able to go to them for questions. Art docents. This was really great. We had art docents this year, but we need more. So, that know about the art, and we have our little placards, explaining the art and welcoming people in to look at the art and to interact with it. Also, because we need so many volunteers to do this, we need volunteer coordinators. Someone to kind of hey, this is the role you signed up for. Thank you for checking in. Go report to this camp. You're going to be doing these duties. Because that was one of the fails that we had this year, was people were showing up for their shift and it's go to this bar at, but they wouldn't be the camp name. It would just be the bar name. And, it's really hard to identify that. So that was our fault in the planning. But anyways, and then sound stages. We had 3 sound stages. So we had DJs coming in to do their set, and sometimes they weren't sure where to go specifically. So having more leads around that. So, and then also sound engineers, if something happens, there's a go-to person or several people. Yeah. And everyone's scheduled. So just more scheduled leads so that they are knowledgeable, fully trained in fire safety and all that. So that should help alleviate mayor burnout. Yeah, because it was rough.
Well, like when she says mayors, we have something called mayors for the day. So we actually divide up, we'll assign camps saying you got to give us 2 tributes for the mayors for the days. And they used to just be during the day. Now, because we're 24/7, we really need to expand it. So we got a team who's taking that on for the day. And then we have a team for taking it on in the evening, because we're going till sunrise and things. And I think having this year, what I learned, because I was really exhausted after this entire last year's burn, is having more division of when critical situations happen on Playa. Not just having one person be responsible for this, during the burn week. But I was out there like the week before. We're out there early and we're out there late. That's just a lot of time to be on call 24/7.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out a way of dividing and conquer between key people that are going to be up at the top. So when something happens, they know how to address it to rangers or emergency.
Okay. Yeah,
I-
right on.
Sorry, I would just add to that I totally agree that, personally, this year's burn took a toll just because of the amount of work and the amount of time we were there. But we have a very, very strong sort of senior management team, for the lack of a better word, not to sound too corporate. And then we have a broader working group. And then, of course, we have the whole camp, and everyone contributes. But one of the key initiatives we have at Feed the Artists is just to create a deep bench, so that if one of the senior people decides to take a year off, which happened this year, that the camp keeps functioning and that there's a backup. And so when we do our planning weekend in Reno, which happens in the spring, we go through our containers. We already have people kind of shadowing the lead so that we know sort of how to put the sync together. We have a lot of infrastructure at camp, and so it's largely a matter of that. And we have a lot of very experienced volunteer chefs who camp with us, and we always want to bring in new people, and then they get shadowed by the veterans. And so having that bench, I think, is a good formula for longevity and sustainability.
Great, thank you. Urian, I know with the size of camp that you're dealing with and what you're managing to pull off, you must have come up against issues dealing with resources like food and water, fuel this year. Do you have some wisdom for us?
Well, actually, this year, from a resource point of view, went really well, because we kind of overcompensated for last year, which of course was a major shit show with the heat and the dust storms, and the vendors, the water trucks wouldn't show up just because the elements were too harsh. And so this year we really made sure that someone was coming by every day to bring us water and to pump us out, because again, we run a big kitchen, right? We have holding tanks, gray water. We can't run a kitchen without fresh water. We need power, so we have a diesel generator. I mean, we'd love to go solar, but our power need is too big. We don't have enough of a footprint for that, because we've converted a container into a refrigerator, a reefer, just going like a custom, a project we did. And because we bring 2 weeks worth of food, I mean, we feed over 5,000 people during the 2 weeks. And so that's food that has to be obviously kept fresh and safe. And so from a resource point of view, we had managed it enough that, other than the shelter in place towards the end when the rain hit again, we got our daily deliveries. And the main urgency towards the end, that Friday when the rain started, was just monitoring the fuel level in the generator. Because if the generator stopped, like, you can technically do without water for half a day, you just have to change how you run the kitchen. But if the power goes out, the reefer goes out and the food spoils, and then the whole show stops. And on top of that, it never, the need was never actually there, but during the end there, during that shelter in place, we got asked by the Rangers and ESD to potentially serve, feed the larger community if other camps were at risk of having their food spoiled. So there was a plan for other camps in our sector, which is the 10 o'clock sector, to bring their food over. We would keep it fresh, and then we would make one big meal for a couple of thousand people. And it turned out that everyone had enough power and water to keep their food fresh and to feed their own camp, but we were getting ready for that. So the biggest urgency towards the end was just in securing diesel fuel. And we went around, and our neighboring camps were, kind enough, if someone had a spare jug of 5 gallons of diesel, they would give it to us. So the community really came together and thrived. And I'm sure that's a story that has been repeated, many times, but it's a lesson learned that we really should have our own little fuel storage, with obviously means you have to put that in the camp plan, and you have all kinds of safety protocols. So that's definitely something we'll have to consider for next year, because without fuel, there's no we can't serve our mission.
Yeah, thank you. The sharing and helping each other was a really beautiful thing with the challenges that we faced with the weather this year. BRC Snow Club, how did you have any issues with the change in the weather, or with your food storage?
Not well. The weather was the weather, right? Not a whole lot we can do about that. It did.
We're trying to do snowball fights, so
yeah, right.
Water skiing.
It did throw a wrench in our strike plan, insofar as we unfortunately, Rachel and I, had to take a little trip afterwards, which meant we wouldn't be able to get back to our storage container for another 2 weeks following the burn. What that ended up meaning for us as a camp, as we were doing strike, is that we had to delay our strike start until we had enough materials that were dry to put away. Put things away wet, because if we did, they'd either end up moldy or completely destroyed by the time we got back to the container. We also were borrowing some infrastructure from another camp, so the same situation there. Had to make sure that it was all dry. So that was a bit of a headache, just in that it slowed us down quite a bit. But otherwise, our camp handled the rain pretty much in stride. I was really impressed with everyone, and all of our campers came through pretty strong.
Right on.
Yeah.
I know. So fundraising is a critical part of a lot of camps' organizational structures. How did your fundraising go in 2023, and what lessons did you learn for 2024 about fundraising?
We learned that it's very hard, especially if you don't have much to show for it. One of the biggest lessons for us was we launched on Kickstarter, which was great for getting attention to our project. However, we ended up setting a goal that was not attained, and most people who donate to Kickstarter did not realize that it's all or nothing. So we had people all the time saying, oh, we donated this project and we never got our pendants. And we had to tell them, like, we didn't get the money, nothing came through. And we ended up funding a lot of this on our own. So that was one of our biggest learnings, is to make sure people know how Kickstarter works when they're donating. Do you want to add?
Yeah, we tried a bunch of different avenues as well for fundraising. So we did the Kickstarter, which, as Rachel said, didn't quite work out. We then launched a GoFundMe, and we also had I'm a designer, and so I did a bunch of designs for swag that folks could contribute to and get something as a kind of a thank you for their donation. We also know from being parts of other camps that ultimately real world events, so whether it's a dance party or some kind of get together, those tend to yield the best results. for two reasons. One, people are there and they can talk to you about the project, but two, you're also building that community around your project, which is really what's going to drive fundraising down the road. And so for next year, we're looking at doing more in-person events. We are looking at converting to a 501c3 as a nonprofit for our project. And we're just going to continue to, grow our community. And now that we've actually brought the slope and shown what it is and people have experience on it, I think we'll have a lot better luck with people wanting to be involved and contribute to the expansion of said slope.
And one other learning that was surprising to me was we had a raffle. One of our friends made a vest or a coat that we raffled. That was one of our best fundraising tools. So if you're looking to do a raffle, it works really well.
Right on. With a sought after item.
We can.
Who would have thought? Go ahead, Wicked.
So we could jump in with some ideas as well. So within the village, we had 19 camps, and all the camps do their own independent. So like even with FLG, this year's art project, Priscilla, didn't they have to do their own fundraising for that?
Yes, we definitely fundraise every single year for that.
Right. So because you get the honorariums, but honorarium might just say, hey, you're going to give you tickets, but you got to come up with.
No, yeah, they give us half. Yeah. They give us half and then we fundraise the rest. Yeah, I DJ'd at I think one of their parties. There were a lot of parties I DJ'd this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did just fundraisers.
Little fundraisers, Kickstarters, even the steam bath camp they had robes and little gifts and swag and then for the village we have dues, which helps to pay for our infrastructure, but we actually have enough money to give individual art grants to inside the village.
Yeah, which is the first time for us giving out art grants, which is great. People submitted their requests and their pricing and their receipts and everything, and we were able to hand out art grants to the artists who really needed it. They've been paying for their own things for a while, and we were able to share the wealth.
Was
Nice.
their
That's
money
awesome.
ready, right? So we just had some extra resources left over from the year before because we had fuel issues previous year, and we'll probably have resources again because the generator wasn't on for the last 4 days, so we got all that fuel money that we'll have to get back out. So
Right on. That's exciting. So now we're going to shift gears, and for everyone participating on the call, you'll be able to choose which breakout room you want to go into. Puppy will open them shortly. I'll describe them briefly so you can start to make your choice. The first breakout room is build, strike, teamwork, and participation all through the event. That room will also have, all the rooms will have a camp support team member, and that room will have more and major trouble if you want to talk with them some more. Breakout room number 2 will be Urian and handling resources, fuel, water, and food. And breakout room number 3 is Wicked and Priscilla, dealing with leadership burnout and keeping the camp afloat in order to do it all again next year. So we're not asking our speakers to run the discussion in the rooms. Please feel free to talk with your fellow theme camp leads about those topics. And we will be there for about 35 minutes. So coming back at 6:15.
And I used to run a Esplanade camp, and I started Post-Nuclear Family as a suburb camp in order to let our campmates be free to do what they wanted, create art on their own terms rather than as a carnival show on the Esplanade. But yeah, getting people for strike, build, participation all week long, but that end of the week, they sure do scatter to the 4 winds.
Oh yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I like to hold space for people to do that because it's been a hard week. And I can understand when people just want to go home. But at the same time, getting that commitment early on and having that spark in those people that really want to be a part of what makes camp happen and what makes camp unhappen. It's great to form that team and get that feeling of take breaks when you need. And, we're still enjoying the process. It's not a military operation, which is kind of tricky.
Nothing.
Oh, we've all had that. I've definitely been a part of camps where if we're not kicking ass, if that Ricky Bobby thing, if we're not in first place, we're in last place. And I know that feeling where you got to load the truck and it has to be boots on the ground. And so I don't blame people for either the stress or for cracking the whip a little or getting on those work boots and the gloves and, getting the sweat going. But there is some sort of happy medium of recognizing that in the people that want to be a part of that, rather than sort of torturing people into that role. And if they don't meet our expectations, then they are, get out of my way. That's I've seen that happen, and that's just such a sad. It makes people not want to participate.
Yeah, it's hard, but it is important to remember where we're all at. And it's been an exhausting week in most cases.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I mean, I have that. So, hey guys, I'm Rambo. I run the Fluffy Cloud, and I have a small team. We're building everything together, and I have an amazing core team that really bust their asses. It's a small core team. And yeah, what I have not been able to find the answer to, which I was hoping just to put out there, is there's the delays with the rain. I also have to be cognizant of the fact that, people have jobs, they have kids, they have things they have to get to. But I was on playa till Friday this week, this year. I was out there for 19 or 20 days or something like that. And it's like, well, I don't know what to do. Right. Cause obviously the weather hit. Thankfully there was 3-4 people that are that have a little bit more flexible schedules because they work in production and stuff like that. So they didn't really have work till the weekend. But damn, that was really freaking hard. And I don't know what to do. Because part of me wants to go to my leads or something and be like, look, guys, next year, that can't happen. I can't be there with just 2-3 people. I need you guys to commit in some way. I don't know what to ask for, right? To be look, if shit hits the fan, it can't just be me and 3 other people taking apart this monstrosity and demooping for everyone. And we did it, but I was a little furious for a bit. And the worst thing is I was furious at the people that worked the most in a weird way. It was the people that had been there for build and were leads in the camp. And then, they I don't know, I don't want to crack on them, but then at the same time, a lot of my camp's 100 people, and my challenge is that it's also, I'm not a small group of friends. I live all over, and all of my camp is from all over the country, all over the world. I have open applications where people come in. So it's not oh, hey, we've got a group of 60 buddies that all live in San Francisco. So I think the camp is still growing, but I don't know the answer to that. And I don't want it to be fuck you guys, you leave me there again. I don't know. I don't know what to do. And one of the ideas, by the way, that I threw out on the camp, feedback form for the burn. I don't know if this is too crazy, but I throw out this idea for the burn because I know that, obviously we don't want to be paying people or something like that. There's BLM issues, and I've never done anything like that. But dude, I'll tell you guys right now, I'll be open about it. At the end, we were so screwed that I went over to where the DPW hangs out, and I was like, guys, I will fucking suck dick. I will do anything. Just please, I need help. And I ended up paying a couple DPW people, basically $50 an hour. Cause it was too much. It was too much for a too small team to go. And it kind of gave me this idea of instead of it being this under the table thing, what if the org with, BLM, approved, a lot of those DPW people, sometimes they need cash or something at the last minute if we're really in a fucking tough spot, this disaster we went through this year. Maybe there was a way to get some extra hands when, you know, a lot of people, you know, run to the wind. I don't know. I have no idea what to do, but like, it's so fucking hard. Like it's been really hard. And I don't know how to, I'm trying my best to like keep to the principles and do everything the right way. But like, I'm fucking drowning here. Like that was really hard.
Yeah, I feel you on needing help when it's like it's already Friday, you're 4 days past when you probably wanted to leave. And out of desperation, you hired some locals. That makes sense. But if that gets sort of engendered into the culture as a method of exodus, then we sort of scale beyond what our scale can support, and that creates its own problem. And the principle of commodification isn't just it's not just some sort of sanctimonious thing. It's also in order to keep this at the amateur level of what can we do with our resources and make happen. And in your case, you had to go above and beyond, and that makes sense. But I would caution against making that a standard.
I don't want to do it. I've never done it before. I think we can all hopefully give each other a little bit of a slack after the rain disaster we went through. But like, yeah, forgetting that idea. It's like, what do we do? Like, am I really gonna tell people? I mean, look, I'm like fully dedicated to the cloud, like trying to keep it alive, like fully. And I don't know if I can go to my leads and be like, look, you gotta like reserve, the full week before the burn and the full last, week after the burn. Hopefully we're out by Tuesday, which is our normal plan. But if we're not, you got to stay. Like, I don't know. Like,
I think you need to go over to the leadership burnout breakout room. I'll just say hey guys, I'm Mark. I'm with La Calaca. We have about 100-person camp as well. One of the things that we do about that is two things actually. One is that if you've never been on a build before, you have to do a build and strike. You have to commit to those two things because, as you say, like everyone wants to start and no one wants to finish. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't going to necessarily have extenuating circumstances, but you get them to commit up front. And then we're also playing around with, because there are definitely, as you said, people in our camp who are giving a lot more than others. Everyone's contributing, but some people are really contributing. And so obviously we're not paying anyone, but we are giving people a break on some of their dues to recognize that effort. And I do think that also helps them feel like they're valued and makes them want to step up to that as well. So I don't know, those are some strategies maybe to think about.
But isn't that kind of paying them in reverse? I give them a break on dues. I also have really, really high costs. It costs almost $200,000 to take this thing out.
I mean, look, I think it's not a plug and play in that respect, but you are trying to acknowledge that there are people that either cannot afford to be there, and so we're already subsidizing some people that are there, and then we're also really trying to recognize you are going above and beyond, and there are things that you're doing that should be acknowledged. And if one of the ways to do that is to give you a break on what you have to pay versus what other people have to pay, it's a little different than saying we're going to pay you. I don't know. That's at least our philosophy.
Yeah, I've done that a little bit. Some of the core crew, the core crew that are really technical and that it's just impossible to do without them. We gave them a break entirely on dues. We're just look, and those were the people but that was that was a small amount of people. And even those people have jobs, at some point, they had to get to a gig, they had to go to something. And I guess there's just no good answer to this. There's just no good answer to this.
You have a unique situation because you said that you have an art piece that takes $200,000 to mount.
Yeah.
Or, geez, I mean, that's obviously it sounds like you need elephants. It sounds like it's like a major undertaking.
Yep.
And
I need rich friends. I don't run in those circles. We're the only, I don't know, we're a very big project for 0 millionaires in it.
Yeah, I think I share that, I have that ambition, but I don't have that budget. But if you are raising that much money in order to make that happen, then my hope for you is to not necessary, and I say this for everybody that's listening, is to not approach the camp as I work so hard, you have to work hard too. Say it, and sort of instead offer that invitation to participate on. We get to make this thing happen, and in order to make that happen, you need to be, to participate. And that changes the timber from, like, are you going to suffer with me, to are we going to make this happen? And if you're talking about playing with 200,000 worth of material to make something really special, I don't know what your art project is. I missed it. But if that's something, oh yeah, go ahead.
I know it's the giant UFO looking thing that doesn't look like a cloud. It's on 4 legs. Looks like a space testicle, kind of.
And is that a playa art? Is that a installation, or?
We're on 2&A. It's like a giant mobile art installation thing, art car kind of. I don't know. It kind of goes into a lot of different categories.
It's the best thing ever.
Where people stand on the wire or the cords on the side of it and bounce up and down while people play music, right?
Yep.
It's the best thing ever.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So best thing ever, and it's great, and that sounds rad. And in order for people to be a part of that, to be on just invite that level of participation where it's not a red rope, but it's a come this way. Let's make this. Who do we have for setup? Who do we have for breakdown? Who do we have for running it? Who do we have for spotters? Who do we have for operators? Who do we have to moop it? Who do we have for maintenance? Who do we have for storage? There are so many things that go into an art car, especially an art car that's so interactive and has so much, LEDs and voltage going on. But that's because I feel you. I've been out there. I've been the guy in camp. I run the camp and I run the art car, and I'm there Thursday a couple years ago with a flat tire. Everyone else has gone home, and I'm on the playa with a flat tire on the art car, waiting for a tire to come from Reno. And, like, there's this feeling of like, couldn't somebody else be this person? Isn't there anybody else in camp that would want to stay with me, or would want to do this instead, or can make that run? And I think, all have to remember that this is our art. This is what we're doing to mount and make this happen. And sometimes we do have to eat our shoelaces on the way to the South Pole.
Well, and I do want to just say in the chat, someone said, how did you handle campers who were not adequate participants? Because I do also think that some of this, especially when you get into the 100+ camp thing, becomes an acculturation and expectation thing. And, if people are basically waiting for someone else to do it, or are reneging on their promise, then I think that is definitely something to weed out,
Sure. I think you're right here. I think what I didn't do, what I'll do for new applicants next year, is I'm going to do exactly what you guys said here. I'm going to require, like, if you want to join this camp, like, you must stay for strike, because that's really the problem. Like, build, fantastic team, pre-playa prep, fantastic. It's the strike that's really the problem. So yeah, I think we always take in new people because, like, it is kind of shiny and people want to be part of it. So yeah, maybe that'll just be the new requirement. Like, you make no plans before like Wednesday.
George, somebody said in the chat, a last man standing crew. One of the camps has a last man standing crew. That's a good idea.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, they don't come for build, and then they just stay for our breakdown.
Yeah, I don't know how practical it is, because some people want to actually go to Burning Man.
Yeah.
No, but they just don't come for the build part.
I got something to say for. Oh, go ahead.
There's a couple things that were raised in the chat, and a couple things that I just wanted to say. This is Dr. Wu from Noble House, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Noble House, but I was there for both build and strike, and I got caught in the middle as well, because I eventually had to leave strike because I had commitments back at home in Seattle that I had to drive back for, and so I ended up leaving Tuesday late afternoon. So one of the things, as I'm standing there waving my arms and jumping up and down, was, why can't we get more time in light of this fucking disaster that has struck, basically, an act of Mother Nature? Can we get a few more days to put stuff away and everything. I mean, it was an unprecedented situation, and the response seemed to be like just shrug shoulders. And I think that something could have been done to reduce the burden on people so that they had more time. That's like
when you say something done by who? Do you mean by the org? Because the org didn't pressure us to get out.
Yeah, they didn't pressure us either.
Well, I know. Well, this is you're right. And so there was this there was an impression that we had to be off the playa by a certain date. And what you're saying is that the org backed down and didn't put the screws to people. And I think that that's great, but I'm not sure how effectively that could have been communicated to people more effectively by saying, we're going to give everybody an extra week to dry their shit out and dig stuff out of the mud and so forth. I'm not sure it would solve all the problems, but it might have been able to solve a few things at the margin. I've been in several of these campfire talks now, people talking about what to do about strike. And I think when you're accepting people into the camp and vetting applications and everything, I think a few people have mentioned it. You can say, you have to stay until such and such a time. I can't count how many times people came running up to me, panicking, going, I have to, on like Saturday or Sunday, I have to leave right away. And I said, why do you have to leave right away? Because I have to be at work on Monday. And I would go like, Monday is a national holiday. Everything is closed. Where do you work? So, it was very, very, it was frustrating to listen to people bullshit their way so that they could leave, in the middle Saturday night. I saw a lot of people book on Saturday night. It was ridiculous.
Those are exceptions. There are definitely those people. And there are also those people who shrugged and said, we're in it and I'm going to help and I'm stay as long as it needs to be. But what I would say, by the way, to why it wasn't communicated, because I was a little frustrated with the communication, from the Rangers, that they weren't more on, like just that their radios aren't on the gate, is that on the other side, as I understand, they don't want to invite a Woodstock kind of situation where if we were to stay if we were like, you know what, they're telling us to stay an extra week, so bust out the bubbly, the party doesn't end yet. Even though we're being allowed to stay to break down, the attitude, if they had given us that leeway, might have been, well, since we have until next Sunday, might as well enjoy the process. So they might have not communicated that they weren't cracking down on us in order for us to crack down on ourselves on our own terms.
Yeah. A couple of things that we, for starters, we all have to continue to acknowledge that this year was just completely unprecedented with a, effectively an act of God, or whatever you want to call it, with the rains, right?
Right.
But because of that, one thing that we're going to be implementing next year is just continuing to emphasize the importance of, whenever possible, not planning a flight immediately after the burn, or work to like the next day, because things do happen, right? And that's the hardest thing. Like, Burning Man is about being flexible in a lot of respects, and you have to be able to provide some flexibility. We, as a camp, we are a mandatory strike camp. We make that clear from day one. And the intention is to start strike on Saturday. Obviously that didn't happen this year, but in addition to that, we also require strike deposit from our campers. Now, in our case, the deposit, in a perfect world, it's just a piece of paper that I get to tear up at the end of the strike, right? I don't want your money, but it's your commitment to us that you're going to stay. And one thing that it's really helpful for is when you're recruiting, if you tell someone that there's a strike deposit and they freak out about it, kind of tells you everything you need to know right there. So that worked reasonably well for us. We had some other issues, but
we have another story. We learned that checks don't work because people who are intending to be shady can write bad checks, and we had a lot of those, unfortunately. which is fraud and not cool. But yeah, so it's not to get money, but unfortunately, accountability and setting expectations are like the biggest thing that we learned. We kind of built the camp all at like, we built the plane as we were flying it, as they say. So a lot of this is our lessons learned the hard way. And I would say really setting those clear expectations around like, yes, we're a mandatory strike. Like strike, we hope is on Saturday, but if not, we're all in this together. That means we have to pick this stuff up and take it with us.
I'd like to ask a question though. Why are you striking on Saturday?
Or Saturday and Sunday. Sorry.
We have a fairly large project. We were pretty deep in the burbs anyway.
We had 2 strike days technically.
Okay, because I mean, doesn't Burning Man go till Monday?
Yes. So we had people striking.
Let me just finish my thought. So when we tell people that strike starts on Saturday and we expect strike to last 48 hours, then the message that the person is hearing is, I can leave Monday morning, or I can leave Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. I mean, I know that's not necessarily what you're trying to communicate. I respect that, but I just ask you to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, and that person who wants to get out of BRC as quickly as they can, they're just here for the party. That may be the message that they're hearing.
Well, so guys, my problem is a little bit different because like what you're saying here is like kind of setting those expectations. And that's what I did. And as a matter of fact, it went really well that way. Like I told it, like, we're a big project. We don't leave till Tuesday. Like the burn wants you out by Monday, but I don't know. I guess when they see like you can stay. Like the truth is like they don't kick you out. They want you to demove. They want you to get your stuff out. Like the problem for me is that, again, I told them, I'm like, all right, no one leaves before Tuesday sundown. And last year we did that just fine, and it was great. It was just this year, it didn't go that way. And it's like, can I really be upset with people or set different expectations to be like, okay, we're gonna be out by Tuesday, but don't make any plans for flights or hotels or anything before Friday. And best case scenario, we're good by Tuesday. And that's the thing. We have set those expectations, and my team did not leave me early. Like, I love them for that, but like, very, very few stayed longer. And that's kind of where, that's kind of the whole thing is like, yeah, you can set those deposits, you can set those expectations, but if the situation arises where, the world changes, like, am I really going to keep someone's strike deposit when I told them stay till Tuesday sundown? They stay till Tuesday sundown, things aren't done, and they leave. Am I going to keep their deposit? That doesn't sound fair.
I think
either.
we all have to acknowledge that this was not a year that we would ever like hope to see again. So there are some pretty extraordinary circumstances. And then I would also just say, if it's a chronic thing, which it doesn't necessarily sound like it is, then that's the thing you need to look at in terms of how you're operating or acculturating people. If it's a one-off thing, then maybe it's just about looking at who are those people that are blowing you off even in the worst of times, and maybe they don't need to come back, and you need to find other people that might hang in there with you. But that's what Burning Man's about,
Yeah.
We were very clear on we had strike deposit this year, and we were very clear on like explicitly what does it mean to stay through strike. It wasn't just stay through strike, it was stay and participate. So we outlined in conversations and in emails what it means to participate, because just because you're standing around on the plot doesn't mean you're striking. That means you're in the way. So we had real clear expectations about that. And we also never gave a promise of when we would be done. We said, we certainly hope to be out by the requested time of the org by Monday at 6. We cannot guarantee it. The more people stay, the sooner we'll be out. And we outlined when we would start striking on various tasks. So we were just extremely explicit about those sorts of things. And that helped this year.
How about maybe a strike lead? So someone who can just stay inevitably, and they have to handle their team. So
what happens when the team flakes out? That's the problem.
Honestly, I'm in George's camp. We have some really great people. This year was an extenuating circumstances, I think. Right. I was one of them that had to leave. I had to leave Wednesday. I filled in strike, but I changed my flight. I stayed an extra day. I stayed as long as I possibly could, but I had to leave Wednesday. And I actually had to take some of our crew to the airport, which is another reason why I had to leave. But I think his point is that when not the planning, but when, you know, the shit hits the fan, we need people that are going to stay then. I know that I cannot stay work-wise and family-wise. I cannot stay past that Wednesday. But I come for a build, I come for a strike, but I will never be able to stay past that Wednesday. But if we have a team that maybe just comes for the, not for build, they come just for the burn and for strike, and those people have to commit to staying to however long they need to.
Yeah. I think that's
Well-
a good idea, Jonna. I'm gonna have a larger department of erections. I'm gonna need more tickets from the burn then. Because right now we have just enough tickets to like entice people for strike. I'm gonna need like double the amount of tickets to like guarantee a strike team now.
Well, and
But
we should a
that strike deadline of Monday, if the org is giving camps a strike deadline of Monday, that's not
No,
necessary.
they don't. They do. It's
They
Tuesday.
don't.
Tuesday at like noon or 6 p.m. or something. I think
Well,
it's noon.
it could be put out even a little bit further. And, you know, I mean, they're creating a problem that can be easily resolved by moving that deadline out a day or two, or a couple days.
It's not
By
a
the way,
deadline.
I just wanted to say something because I've been muted by accident, and it was funny. I wanted to say that all of our passions and all of our ways of doing it are variously right, and everybody has a good way of doing it, and everybody is having some trouble with their ways. I don't think there's one solution. I think it comes back to the culture that we want to create within our camp, and also the scale of our camp. So if you've got some giant thing happening, you absolutely need a giant team to help make it happen. And if you're a medium-sized camp of 50 people or so, or a small camp of 10 or 15, it's a completely different thing. But something I wanted to say to the thing I keep hearing is that there's a strike team or there's a build team. And from my own personal experience is that the people who want to build it are also a part often who want to break it down because they have the special knowledge of how things got put together. And they're also those people that have that we can do it attitude and muscle to make it happen. I'm a part of that. I don't want to be either arriving rock star and leaving late or arriving early and, you know, leaving early. It's really comes down to culture. And I think that there's a lot of solutions. And I think listening to each other for things like having, you know, different things like a strike deposit. That's a really interesting solution that maybe Venmo public payments would solve the problem. And I think probably a reason why some of those people were committing fraud, so to speak, is that they wrote checks that then they went to Burning Man and spent all the money to get there and all the money on whatever they got. And their checks were no longer good.
So AZ.
Oh, yes, thank you. So Alternative Energy Zone, we're a village of about 400 people. We do not charge dues. We have almost no structure as far as a build team and a strike team. And it always works. We, even arriving late, we set up our entire block for 400 people, 65-ish camps in 28 hours. We build streets, we have a town hall, music hall, radio station, tower, all these things. Now, we're not a giant art piece that has a lot more maybe infrastructure necessary, but what I just want to speak to is it works. And I think that part of the way it works is we have things like a quarterly newsletter, right? Where every few months we put together a very elaborate newsletter telling our villagers what we've been working on, what we've been building, what's been happening to keep them involved. And then we have work weeks starting usually in like March or April, every month for a week long, where people can come and they can help maintain infrastructure and do all these different things. So I feel like there's like a level, because they don't pay anything, but like somehow they feel so involved through that process that they stay no matter what, or they come early and they help. So I think that that's also like a component that I haven't really heard being talked about, is like how as far as like building the community and getting the buy-in is like, how do you get the people involved throughout the year?
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
It's a great point.
Also, AEZ is also made up of a lot of individuals and cells that do a great job of managing themselves, which is a really awesome
Right.
aspect
So
of the
like
AEZ.
I said, I mean, we were not like a camp that's building the cloud and all those things, but you know, we still do offer a lot, and we have a lot of bars and art model camp and all these things. But I do also understand that it's difficult if a large majority of your camp is out of the country. But at our work weeks, I mean, on average, we only have like 10 to 15 people. I mean, it's not a huge amount, but I guess I'm just saying that like, and after every work week, we put out an email telling everybody these people came and these are the things that we did. And, you know, if you're inclined, if you can't help out with time, like here's our PayPal. If you can't help out with time, please make a donation. And we just like keep people involved throughout the year, which I think is a big part of following it through.
Yeah, I just want to add to that because I completely agree, and culture is so important. Community is so important. We have a really active WhatsApp group with about 150 people on it, and separate off into cities as well. So there's like a Lakalaka San Francisco group and a Lakalaka New York group, so that we're trying to keep people engaged in a way that is meaningful to them as much as you can.
Yeah, I think recruiting is really what it came down to for us, and the fact that we kind of built a camp from almost nothing, and it was a year of vetting for us. Normally that wouldn't be the case, and now we kind of know our people and like what to look for. So I think you're right. It's like know the people to bring close and look at who builds that community. Unfortunately, the group we had an issue with was a group, and that was our biggest lesson learned this year was do not add a group. It was a group of 17 and they all acted as a group. And that was a huge problem. So learn from our lesson or learn from our experience. Don't do that. Everyone else was really awesome.
I want to add a quick thought that I've been having. This was my second burn, so I still kind of consider myself a newbie. And because I was asked to work on logistics, I drove down a Sprinter van full of tools and parts and stuff like that. So I'm pitching in, but we had a lot of people who came by burner bus, and I see that as probably a trend that's going to increase. And I think, in some sense, we want to see it, but because people didn't have the flexibility about when they could leave and when they wanted to leave, we probably had people, well, I know we had people who would have stayed but couldn't stay because they had to jump on the burner bus. Burning Man has become a web of a lot of interlocking pieces, and you know, the burn schedule and the burner bus schedule and all these things are connected, and there often is not a lot of flexibility. We've talked about flexibility and people being able to flex their time and so forth. But if they have to jump on the burner bus or some other thing that is.
But here's the thing about that, because I take the burner bus. The good thing about the burner bus is, that's not a striker, right? That person is on a noon bus on Sunday. They are not striking with you. So if you're expecting them to, you're making a mistake. So I think it's all about finding, the people that can stay and making sure they do.
No, please, maybe I misspoke myself. You're right. People who are on the burner bus, they know when they're going to leave. They know what their schedule looks like. But there were people who, in light of what was, an unprecedented situation, might have wanted to stay. They were capable. They had the skills and might have wanted to stay. But they had to go and leave on the burner bus, just like you. And so, my point I'm not pointing the finger at the burner bus or anybody else for that matter. The point is that there's a lot of interlocking pieces here to this, and it's not really possible to unlink them. They're all linked.
Yeah. No, that's such a fantastic point. I think this is an actionable thing we could actually tell the org, which is that, they're trying to get their green footprint down, right? But,
right.
Transportation is the biggest part of that. if there was, obviously there's like the burner bus for people that are just coming for the burn, but if there was some kind of, you know, call it builder bus, you know, just from Reno, something like that, that's like, you know, kind of constantly going from, you know, Monday of build till Wednesday of, you know, because let's be honest, like DVW is there for way longer. There is no real deadline, guys. Like you can definitely be striking till Wednesday, Thursday, like
I've been there late.
level will come by and be like, "Are you leaving soon?" Because he's done that to me a couple times. But like he gets that you're trying to, you know, they understand they don't want you to leave Moop, they don't want you to leave stuff. And yeah, I definitely lost multiple people that were just like, "Look, I have to get the burner bus," and if there was some kind of way for people to still have rides out, that's so constantly a problem. It would not only reduce our footprint for build and strike and everything, but yeah, I think it would allow people to come in and out and help a lot more there. I don't think that's not an aggressive thing, right? Just to have like a bus that leaves
I don't
every
think
hour.
I think it's doable. And we talked even about putting together kind of our own burner bus, you know, getting some vans that we could use to ferry people on and off. But I think that talking to the org about having some sort of secondary transportation network to get people off the playa later than the burner bus. The burner bus, if we approach them, they're going to say, well, but our drivers have jobs and they have to go. So you have all these interlocking pieces and they need to be looked at they need to be looked at because there's very little flexibility in this very, very tight network.
Yeah, Mike, awesome points, JP. So many wonderful contributions. We have about 5 minutes left here. Just wanted to kind of capture some of the things we talked about. I'll post that in the chat. So if something I missed, I've been trying to just take notes of the key topics. And one of the themes that I heard was like contingency plans, right? So who's going to get there at what time? What are people's schedule plans, and actually creating some document maybe to show who could arrive at what time early and who could stay, and what is the latest date people could stay on playa if things do happen. So, and I do a lot of technical scuba diving. So with tanks, you're only given air for a certain amount of time at what depth. So we have 5 contingency plans just for one dive. So this is what I'm gathering here is like, you need the out of gas scenarios, like the strike list, like people are leaving, who's not showing up on time, the rain happened, all these different conditions happen. So how do we really package that up and put it into some form that we could like use within our camps? Because everyone's camps are a little bit different. So
yeah.
So continue on. We have 4 more minutes, but I just wanted to insert that, and I'll put my stuff in the chat just so you could see the themes that I captured so far.
Somebody in the chat asked me if I was part of a hub for some reason when I first kind of was communicating my challenges. I'm not really sure why you asked that question, but is that whoever that person was, is there something that comes helpful from that? No.
By the way, before we all break off, I wanted to say Discord is an awesome, WhatsApp is great, but Discord gives you the opportunity to create, different organizations within your organization. So I recommend looking into that to keep your camp organized with the small teams.
And don't forget, feedback form is in the chat as well. So I just pasted that key topics. So if you have stuff to add, I will add that to the list of topics, from strike and build to the transportation service in and out for builder bus, last man standing, better communication, strike lead, contingency plan, strike deposits. I just try to deadlines.
Public shaming.
Public
doxing.
Humiliation. That could be a whole another camp for public humiliation. Be very popular. But I think the deadlines thing, people have talked about how the deadlines are kind of soft deadlines or everything. And there could be a lot better communication around that whole thing so that people know what's what.
Awesome. This has been a great group. I love the discussion. That's why I just sat back here trying to capture as much as I could and try to make sure if anybody hasn't spoken, you have 2 minutes. Please go ahead and share your experience, because I know all of ours are a little bit different. So
take the staying longer with a grain of salt. This year, we got a little bit of leeway because of the rain. Nobody defined it. But in years past, Monday evening, we have usually a few people that will stay until Tuesday and then leave to make a final move sweep to make sure our space is like pristine. And they have been aggressively harassed by BLM. So you have to make sure you understand you do run the risk, when the permit runs out for the event, a new permit comes into play and you can actually be charged with trespass. And then you're banned from the event for a year or even 2. So watch that.
Well, look,
sure
all I'll add,
take that into consideration. Be friggin' polite.
yeah, I'll just add that my first burn, I had a terrible camp. I ended up getting rid of all of them, but I was stuck there until Thursday. I was never threatened with anything like that. I've always planned and officially told the org, like, I will not leave till like Tuesday night at best. And they never said, again, maybe it's just maybe they just know that this is an insane project. So they're like, all right, fuck it. So maybe it's different for other places, but
it's the power of the cloud.
it's a struggle cloud right now, but I don't know. I guess that's, again, maybe that's a clarification to have with the org to figure out like what's really going on. Cause like, I'm sure they would all like less camps to not be struck, to be more mooped, all that other kind of good stuff. And like, maybe that's, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
thank you all. You should have a breakout room where you could switch to now, and maybe popped up for you. If not, it's in the bottom 3 dots where more is, just to go back to the main room.
So welcome. So this is our breakout, and the hope here with the breakouts, with Campfire Talks, we've often had our panelists and had a Q&A from the chat. But what we're hoping here by doing breakout rooms is that we can have a little bit more of a focused conversation and share not only with Urian, who so graciously has volunteered to be one of our panelists, but also to learn from all of us about how we're doing, and in this particular breakout room, looking at resources and how we manage resources, and hoping that we can learn from each other, maybe learn from some of our great successes, but also learn from some of our challenges that we've had. So let's go ahead and just introduce ourselves. So if you want to go around and unmute yourself and just tell us who you are, and maybe your camp and the size of your camp, just to start. Anybody can just go.
I'll go. I'm Julie, and I was with Religious as Fuck, and we had 24, I think, in our group. And I helped with feeding people.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I go by Miss Claire on Playa. I have kind of 2 roles. I'm a camp lead for a small hybrid camp that's an art support, mutant vehicle, and work camp, and known as the Camp Puddletown Panorama, named after an old art car of mine. I'm also one of the 4 field registration and safety compliance officers for petrol.
We love petrol.
Thank you.
You guys are always welcome for dinner, and you often show up. And it's Metroid and Cherokee saved our lives this year. So
yeah, they're good souls.
Yes,
we try.
I'm Joel Spolsky from the Future Turtles, and I thought I'd go next because I have a sticker that says Miss Claire's seal of approval on my generator. And we actually had we did very well with the generator this year and with fuel. Our problem was with water. We're a camp of about 40 people, and we're going to cap it at 40. And every year I try to figure out something else that we can do on our own instead of relying on OSS. So next year we're probably going to just have a trailer that has 7 or 8, giant cubes of water that we bring for the whole week instead of relying on a vendor. The vendor we had came once every 5 days after promising to come every other day. So we were pretty much without water for at least a whole day. So that was bad, but fuel was great.
Joel, did you get to put that into the OSS survey? Because I'm with
in
OSS.
OSS survey.
Yeah, there's an
Repeatedly
OSS a
mentioned.
Google form that you can submit feedback about things like that.
This is definitely the biggest water vendor, and they just didn't do it. But I always like an opportunity to be more self-reliant, and so we're just building a big old trailer with a bunch of those little water cubes and plumbing them all together, and we're going to store it in Empire and fill it up with water on the way in, and hopefully that'll be our water for the week.
Cool. Yeah, OSS supports you being self-reliant.
Galaxy.
But also we want to hear that feedback, so I'll get you the link for that.
Okay.
Galaxy, you want to introduce yourself since you're
Sure. Yeah, my name's Galaxy. I'm part of the OSS crew and usually work out at Point One, looking after the contracts and what the vendors are bringing in, making sure that everything's compliant and on the list of authorized equipment. And I'm also part of the board of directors of Camp Beaverton, which is a 50-person camp that's been on Playa since 2009, and generally in the 730 sector. Thanks.
Awesome.
You're our neighbor too.
So I have a couple more people on the screen who have not introduced themselves. I've got iPad.
That's Tom. He's with Feed the Artist.
Oh, hi, Tom. Okay. And then we've got Leslie and Jason. Leslie, you want to go ahead and unmute and just tell us who you are?
Hey, I'm floating amongst breakout rooms, but hope you can hear and see me. Leslie Stein. I'm a volunteer with Camp Network, and also I am a lead of a camp called 3SP, Third Space Place. We've been around since 2015, and we're fairly small. We range from about 15 to 26 people throughout the years, and I'm happy to be here.
Nice. Thank you. And Jason, are you with us?
I am. So I'm actually part of leadership or a team lead with a camp. We were with Proverbial last year. I'm here to more learn about what kind of you guys did with fuel, water, and resources to help out next year, maybe.
Awesome. Awesome. And my name is Peta. I am a camp lead for Fafa Camp, started in 2010 and normally in the 430 neighborhood. But this year we were over in the 3 o'clock neighborhood, actually over at 230. And our camp is also on the smaller side, always kind of interesting. A lot of our camps are on the smaller side. We're at about 40. I do love that number 40, 42. It just seems like a really nice number to cap out at. Joel, how you were saying you wanted to cap out at 40. So I just have a question for Urian about, I know that you talked a little bit about this already in our main room, but if you could just maybe go over again a little bit, like some of the challenges and the successes you had this year with your resources, and that might help to start a conversation with us all.
Of course. So I just need to do a flashback to last year, because again, we are a resource heavy camp or a capital intensive camp in the sense that the kitchen is what it's all about, right? Our mission is to feed the artists, to serve the community, and in doing that, and that's kind of what we're doing. So we're a camp of service, and in creating that service, we build a very tight bond within our camp, and I think that's, I don't want to say we're unique in that sense, but we're a very tight camp. Like we have family dinners, and then we go out and we feed the artists, and I think we have that bond, and so everything kind of needs to go right on the resource side, because if one link of the chain falls apart, kind of the whole operation stops, right? I mean, so we've built in some redundancies, and we learned from last year when when the weather was just so hot. and we had all these dust storms that prevented the vendors to do their rounds. And on top of that, it was the first year back from COVID. And so it was like everybody forgot how to do Burning Man, it seems. And you had the labor shortages, so the vendors didn't have enough drivers, whether it's the pump out truck from United Site Services or even petrol. We know there was some issues last year, which certainly were addressed this year as far as I'm concerned. And so we came into this year overcompensating anyway, or at least compensating, saying, we can't, getting a water fill every other day is not enough, because that every other day might be the day where someone may not be able to show up, right? And last year it was a major issue where the trucks would go around and either the elements would slow them down, or they would get flagged on their way to a scheduled delivery, and then by the end of the day they just ran out of time, and the drivers went home. And so we came into this year compensating. So as early as March, like I'm emailing my contact at United Site Services, like in February, can we sign a contract? And they're like, well, we're not ready to go. Galaxy can attest to that, but I don't think the vendors could even do anything until I think April this year when they got their contracts. But we're out there already saying like we're ready to go. Like we know how many people we're going to have, because our camp fortunately sells out is a bad word, but we fill up quickly. We start enrollment in January. We have a lot of veterans, but also some newbies. But by March, we know how many people we have. We know what we're going to do and how often, and we have a sense of how much we need of everything. And so certainly this year we saw kind of on some of the Facebook TCO chats that people in July are like, why can't I get a contract from United? It's like, well, duh, you should have done that in March, not in July. And so we planned ahead. And like I said earlier, we have a very strong leadership team, but kind of one of the roles I take on is to be the vendor relations person, and just to make sure that we have really good relations. And, we are a food camp, so anyone who comes by to deliver fuel or water or do a pump out, they're always invited for dinner. Like we always say, like, you hungry? Join us for dinner. And we have these little bracelets that we hand to people as our dinner invitations. So I think generally, we treat them as family, and they treat us in the same way. So I would say, treat your vendors like family. And so we had our deliveries every day until the shelter in place. And then of course, nobody could go anywhere. And actually one of our campers, who is very talented in driving his pickup truck through the mud, which I don't think was even allowed, but we needed diesel, because once the tank goes to a quarter full, the generator shuts down. And so Adam and I went around and we found a ranger. There were rangers parked towards the road to Hell Station, and we were pleading with him, and then the ranger drove me out there, and lo and behold, Metroid and I think it was just him who was there, and he helped us out. This was probably like on Sunday or something of Burn Week. And we were able to get by, and we had enough water, because water you can ration. And we have these 2 gray water tanks in the kitchen. They're low profile, 250-gallon tanks, and those were designed so that we fill up one, it gets pumped, and then if the pump truck doesn't show up, we have a second one, a spare one. And so we can manage that. We see how full they get, because they're right by the kitchen, or on the side of the kitchen. And so we can kind of monitor, saying, okay, we can't do any dishes right now because we need to get this pumped out. So a lot of this is on the fly management. But in terms of, like petrol came every day, and just as I'm about to freak out saying tank is a third going to a quarter, there they are, and they showed up. And so all in all, I was very, very pleased with the cadence and reliability of all the vendors. And one of the things we do for water, for instance, is we primarily use Sierra Site Services, which used to be Custom Waterworks, and they're amazing. And one year, I think it was 2019, we ran out of water, and I see Mike Kivett, not to mention names, but he from United Site Services drive by, and I'm like, can we get some water? And he's like, well, you're not on the list of water companies, water customers. We were on the list of pump out customers. And so one of the things we do now is we build in some redundancy. So we get multiple vendors for water so that if we're out because someone can't make a delivery or people are using too much water, and we see another truck go by, then we're at least on the list as a customer. But so generally speaking, that part of the camp went really well. Just at the end, we were scrambling for some diesel, but we were able to get it.
Great. Thank you. That was really helpful. Joel, kind of going back to your point about the radical self-reliance. And this is something that I actually struggle with. No, I don't struggle with it. It's something I think about as a camp, and listening to you, Urian, and the stress that you start to have as that diesel gets, below that point, and then it kind of upsets the whole reason of being there. And just I would just like to kind of put that out there of the concept of radical self-reliance and trying to achieve the vision that we have for our camp, something like that, with feeding 1,000 people. So Joel, you want to take it from there?
Well, we looked at fuel, and there's only so much we can do, because you really shouldn't have more than a day's worth of fuel in your camp. Maybe a day and a half. And that's the way everything is sort of organized for safety reasons. And that the only way then, therefore, to be self-reliant with fuel that I could figure out, if I were trying to be crazy, the only thing I could think of is you could have a pickup truck that went to Friendly every day, because you can't even get diesel in Gerlach. So you have to go, you'd have to literally you'd have to have somebody every single day drive to Friendly, and then the maximum they can drive on the roads in Nevada is either 100 gallons or 200 gallons, depending on how that pickup is equipped. But presumably you only want maybe 100 in your camp. And so for even a medium to small size camp, I think we were probably using 35 to 50 a day for 40 people. Or actually, wait a minute, we were supplying 3 other camps, so never mind, because we're in a hub. But you get 200, 300 people. You probably, if you're self-sufficient on fuel, you have to have a full-time person whose full-time job is to drive to Friendly every day and back. And so that's not reasonable. And that means you have to use the BRC fuel program. There's really no other way that I can see if you're using fuel. And so this year they're great and they got everything on time. Last year they didn't, and the generator kept running out of fuel. And we just had sort of like a lot of food spoil because the refrigerator went down and so forth, because we were sort of there was no way to be radically self-reliant there. In terms of, we're going a little bit crazy in terms of water, but we have like literally this old Mayflower moving truck, and we filled up the bottom of it with those flat tanks for gray water. And we're filling up one section of the top of it with the cubes for fresh water. And then we'll store it with Fixer and Empire. And that lets us bring in, hopefully from next year, bring in all our own water and take out all our own gray water with just somebody, like one person in camp with a CDL can just drive it in, and no OSS required, hopefully. So we need to get somebody in camp with a CDL. And that's the water. And that's also got toilets and showers in that same moving van. So we're a little bit more self-reliant there, but there's kind of a limit to how much you can do. And we're kind of on the spendy side of what the average camp would be able to do or willing to do. I think it's far more common to want to just use MECO and rely on them. But the number of camps that you just see sending people with bicycles chasing water trucks all day long because the water vendors aren't so great at proactively delivering water has been a problem. And I sort of got started on this mission after Renegade Burn, essentially, when we came out with that Camp with Food Pile that year. And the goal is like, I just want to be able to roll in everything I need to run a camp without relying on porta potties, any kind of OSS vendors, any kind of water or gray water removal. Want to have my own generator and my own reasonable version of fuel. And so that's what I'm kind of working on, so that in a theoretical Renegade Burn or Juplaya situation, we could actually operate our whole camp.
Yeah. And just on that note, one of the benefits, we're not a huge camp in terms of people. We're 85 people. But in terms of our resource consumption, because we're running a kitchen and serving all these meals, I guess we're a big enough customer that we get included in the scheduled runs, right? I mean, if you think about the order size that goes out in advance for daily deliveries, we have a 500-gallon water tank in the kitchen, 250-gallon gray water holding tanks. And so that does create more reliability perhaps than if we were a much smaller camp. But one of the caveats with that is that, a couple of years ago, we would do every other day fills and every other day pumps. And then, like I said before, you run into the risk that someone doesn't show, and then all of a sudden your gray water tank is full or your potable water tank is empty. And in compensating for that with daily fills and daily pumps, it gets you into an area where you're maybe wasting money, right? Because you're getting a voucher for a 250-gallon pump out, but there might only be 100 gallons in there that needs to be pumped out. And so I think it's an impossible challenge to fine tune that, unless you can buy pump outs by the gallon or by the 10 gallons, which is, as far as I know, not possible. So there's never the right answer, and you're running a risk either by wasting money or by having everything stop at camp.
Yeah. And another issue when you get to be a smaller camp our size, I think if we were a camp of 100 people, we could have somebody dedicated to sit there and wait for Miko or United Site Services or whoever is supposed to be coming by, or the petrol. But with only 40 people, there's a high probability that United Site Services does come by and they can't find anybody. And I've literally instructed every single camper into where to find the stickers, but somebody says, I don't know where the stickers are, I can't give you your voucher. So we try not, with the camp of 40 people, I can't really have a dedicated person whose job is to sit there and wait for them. That's sort of too much. The shift burden on the campers becomes too high.
I feel your pain.
Yeah.
It's like, tell everyone the voucher is on the fridge.
Yeah. But like, for example, BRC Petrol did a great job this year of just coming and dealing with it. And sometimes they left a message with somebody, but mostly they filled the frigging tank. And
we actually, other than when myself or one of the other agents come to tag the generators or your drum, if you're doing a drum drop, whatever it is, we actually don't need somebody to be in camp. Our drivers have their route and they do it. Unless there's an issue, and then they'll go looking for somebody or get a message.
And I think if it's possible to do that for petrol, it'd be delightful if they could figure out how to do that for water. But
we have enough challenges just doing it for ourselves.
No, not you. I mean, it would be delightful if Miko could figure out how to drop off water without being given cash.
Last year was, you were right, it was an absolute shit show because we were very rusty coming back, and we lost a lot of our regular crew who didn't come back after COVID. And amongst those were some of our most senior tanker drivers. And we were I'm not making excuses, but I'm just saying this is one reason why it was really bad last year, was because we didn't have enough tanker drivers. We literally didn't. And we are limited to the hours they can drive because it's a safety issue. There's all sorts of regulations that petrol has to work under that other parts of DPW don't. And it all has to do with what we're handling and what we're bringing to you. That enabled Hotspot to get a lot more support for getting extra drivers. So this year we actually were able to double our shifts, which is one reason. So we basically almost had twice as many tanker drivers and trackers as we have done in the past. So if one good thing came out of the mess, it was proving how important it is to have enough people to do our job and to be able to do it under the regulations we're required to do it under. I would also say that when we do have a problem, such as like last year, we were without fuel delivery because of a fatal accident that happened down near Fernley, and it closed the road. And we only get one tanker or one delivery coming in from Fernley to the main depot every day. And that's a safety issue because we're limited on what we are allowed to bring in on the road. So that messed us up as well. And this is one of the reasons why when you get your fuel account, we try to get camp folks to understand. And this is also for the camp literature that is out there for folks who don't have fuel accounts, is to try and make sure that you have enough fuel in your camp for 24 hours. This is one reason why we top up every day for our account holders. Even if it's only 5 gallons, our drivers will come and do that to make sure that we can try and keep it moving. Logistically, it's a pretty, though I say so myself, I'm always amazed by how we manage to deliver. We visit every single registered generator once every 24 hours at a minimum, which is pretty incredible if you think about it.
Yeah, no, you were amazing. And like I said,
thank you.
Petrol, they're always welcome at dinner, and at our late night food court. You can tell maybe the shift was ending because we would have like 5 or 6 of them. You can see with the badge. It was good.
And I would say if you have a kitchen, you have that kind of perishable, or you have somebody with a medical requirement, for heaven's sake, and please spread this, if you ever get low on fuel for whatever reason, get a message to us, because we prioritize those kinds of situations. We do not prioritize air conditioning of RVs, but and the fuel that ends up getting put into those, but or the grids that feed those, but for potentially life-threatening things or wellness things like medical and food, we will prioritize and we will try and get somebody out there. So always come and ask.
Just one hack that we learned that is was very useful is last year we had a 70 kilowatt generator. And we were kind of running at capacity a lot. And this year, because we have more people, we're trying to create, serve more meals. We went to 100 kilowatts. Mm-hmm. And I think it actually ended up saving us fuel.
Yes.
Because if you're running 100 kilowatt at 70%, it's much more fuel efficient than burning the hell out of a 70 kilowatt at whatever, 95%. Or 100%. So that was a good lesson learned for this year.
Yeah, it's a tough lesson for us to get across to people because it's not intuitive.
No.
It really isn't. But that's part of the trick to all of this, is educating yourself about generators. And also the larger ones are often cleaner. They're not just more fuel efficient. They're cleaner to run, which is a big push for us with the sustainability, the 2030 sustainability goal that the organization is aiming at. Yeah. We want to be redundant. Fuel would like to disappear.
So this year, obviously, as you know, Agreco was replaced by Sunbelt.
Yeah.
And the prices always go up. We know that price always goes up. But Sunbelt was really, really good to work with, and their generators, I think, are generally greener than others, which I presume was one of the reasons why they were chosen. But they were really a pleasure to work with.
The other thing too is that we're trying to move to, and you may have seen this, certainly within the infrastructure for the organization and the event, we were using more hybrid generators this year, and we're slowly trying to increase that number. We just had on Saturday, there was the camp, Rats did their talk thing, and the numbers are not in yet for what we saved with solar and these hybrids, but it's coming, and it's clear that this year we did a lot better all round than we have in previous years. And I'm looking forward to seeing what our fuel numbers were. In other words, how much fuel we dispensed over the course of the event compared to previous years, because I do know that the hybrid generators were definitely reducing the amount of fuel that, for example, DPW was consuming in its own operation.
Our fuel bill this year was under 5,000, which is significantly less than in previous years.
There you go.
And for a camp of our size, with the kind of the resources we consume, that was a good outcome.
Yeah, we used fewer gallons, but I think it was just because of the cooler.
Well, there is that, and we're aware that is going to skew our numbers a little bit. That's for sure. There's no question about that. The other thing that I know, I'm almost certain has put the fuel consumption up over 2019 is the proliferance of e-bikes, because they all, and a number of camp leads that I talked to last year were scratching their heads because their estimate of how much fuel they would need was way out. And these are guys that have done this for years, and they're usually really accurate. They know how much their camp uses. And besides the heat, it made no sense unless you took into consideration that their camps for the first time, and for some of them, had e-bikes. And this is another thing, because people plug those things in and then they don't unplug them or turn the Jenny off or whatever it is, and so they're wasting fuel. And so there's a lot of education that needs to be done in terms of things like charging scooters and e-bikes.
Which I think is just a really important aspect, because again, I feel like the e-bikes make it easier, and they're kind of a cool ride, but at the same time, when we're thinking about sustainability and these kind of things, I push against it a little bit, unless it's needed. And I have to say, we had one in our camp this year, and it turned out to be very helpful, because one of our campmates who ended up leaving early due to this had some kind of insect bite on his foot that he got somehow between where he lives in Morocco, to out to the Black Rock City, and he could use the bike to get around because his foot was so swollen. So I can see the value, but at the same time, I think people have to think about this, about, okay, we're bringing more stuff out, they're heavier, I have to get a bigger truck. And it's this whole thing about, I need more, I got to get bigger. And then just the other thing I wanted to bring up, as whether you've considered for Urian and Joel, who are, kind of the main ones sharing right now, is using more solar. And you talked about the hybrid, but what's your thoughts about that? We did do solar. We had battery generators this year, and they worked really fine. But we were helping out another camp, and they hadn't really clarified that they were going to be sucking off our battery fueled, from the solar into the battery. And so it wasn't as effective as we thought, because we had two camps.
So I'd like to plug something on that one. Two things. Last year, that was early this year, I think, Black Rock Labs put out a video about solar generation, I've been waiting for somebody to do a really good one that explains the potential, because people are intimidated by solar, partly because of the initial outlay. It can be expensive, but it's one of these things that's basically modular. You can build on it. My little camp is about 80% solar, including an ice machine. So there's that. The other is the rats talk thing that was on this Saturday. Although it's geared more towards artists, because it's renewables for the artists team, a lot of what was discussed on Saturday is very relevant to camps and camp leads, and they will, if they haven't already done it, they're going to be posting that entire session, which was about an hour and a half, on their Hives page. So I strongly suggest you guys take a look at it, because some of the information about what happened this year was reported and especially about incorporating solar and hybrid into both art projects and the camps that support the art projects. So this is why it was also camp related. So I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's up there yet, but I know that's where they're going to be posting it, and you'll be able to access it.
Fantastic. Yeah, Hive is a really good resource. And I know someone else that I know in camp support, he built his first solar project from a video from Hive. It was like Solar 101 or something. And it was small. It was for, I think, charging phones or something.
Rats is going to redo the 101. That was another thing they said on Saturday. They're revising it after this year, and they're going to be at some point before the coming season, they're going to be putting up their 101 again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. We ultimately, we'd love to go to solar, but every time I try to do the calculations, even if you forget about the cost of purchasing the solar equipment, because of the need to have those batteries and inverters for larger camps, the batteries and inverters have to be trucked in from somewhere unless they live year-round in Empire or Gerlach. If they live in Gerlach year-round, you bought an expensive battery with a 10-year lifetime that you're using 2 weeks of the year. So that's not a good idea. So that means that whatever these panels and these big batteries have to be useful somewhere else for the rest of the year. And that means either Reno or San Francisco or like Los Angeles, so someplace where I can truck it in from. If you actually calculate the carbon emissions from trucking in that much weight into Burning Man for 1 year using presumably a diesel-based truck, the actual emissions of that are such that if you're bringing in the gear from Reno, you're probably okay. If you're bringing it from San Francisco, you're pretty much break even. But if it's further than San Francisco to bring in this gear, the actual shipping of the solar gear to Playa is doing more carbon emissions than you're saving.
Yep.
By running a generator on Playa. So there was a camp which I think they called Solar Punks, and they very nicely put a complete description of every single piece of equipment that they had. And they must have had a tractor trailer that they brought in from Los Angeles. And what they failed to account for in all of their detailed numbers is the carbon emissions that it took to bring in a tractor trailer full of that much equipment. Never mind acquiring it, and not using it the rest of the year. Like it's a fun project to learn about how this stuff works. But if you're going to cause such high emissions, it turns out that bringing a little bit of diesel to Playa is extremely efficient relative to bringing those big battery packs. So essentially, we need something that we can rent in Reno.
I think you're going to. I think that's coming. I honestly think that's coming because the whole solar technology thing. Like it's like LEDs. Do you remember how expensive your LEDs used to be when they first appeared, right? And now they're pennies.
Yeah. But it's the same math just for a regular generator. Like, we spend so much on renting a generator. It's like, why don't we buy one? But then it's like, what does it do the rest of the year? And if these things aren't used, they're not going to work. It's like buying an RV and not using it 50 weeks out of the year. And so you end up with the same math, whether you're going to solar or staying with diesel. Yeah. And it's one of the, it's just one of the realities we have to deal with.
Yeah. The generators right now, though, are frequently used on job sites in Reno and Sacramento. So for us to rent generators for a week from the generators that are kind of useful to somebody in Chico, Sacramento, or Reno is relatively easy compared to solar panels. Once there's availability, it's not really the panels, it's the batteries. Because that's the heavy part. Then we'd be delighted to do it. And then short term, we'll stick panels on top of our containers and stuff so that we have like a little bit of trickle charging and stuff. But that's not going to make a big difference.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to point out is I believe it was last April, one of our Campfire Talks on sustainability. One of our panelists really gave a lot more information about what you're talking about. Regarding the emissions that are created for Burning Man, and that is the number one pollutant or what have you for Burning Man. And so the number one thing that we can do is not have one person in one car, which I know a lot of people don't do. But
this year I was gonna ask, because my campers, I make them all take the bus unless they're on the build team. They all have to take the Burner Express bus. But one thing we're trying to do this year as a part of self-reliance as well is just bring in our own bus full of like literally all of our campers that stops in 2 or 3 places. And that works well for 40 people minus the build team comes in trucks. But there's some advantages to the Burner Express bus, like they're allowed to come on Saturday and they can skip the line. So that's something we're going to work on this year.
Yeah, it
Another
just
point
feels like
about
the Burner Express has gotten so expensive that for a lot of our campers, they find it's cheaper for 4 or 5 of them to rent a car for the week than for them to pay the, you know, that amount of money. And so again, it's you know, people go back and forth and we encourage it, but then when it becomes a cost issue and you're trying to bring your bike on, which is another $100, and yeah, it's just I think we're all trying the best we can. It's just I don't think it doesn't feel like there's a really clear like, oh, if you do this, it's going to mitigate, or if you do that, it's going to mitigate. It just feels like there's just a lot of choices out there. So Claire,
we're still all going hundreds of miles away into the desert to do this. So I don't know that we're ever going to completely solve this problem. But
no, another one of the big pollutants is all those little tiny Honda generators. That they're so less efficient than one larger unit, and they put out a lot more emissions. And in fact, really nasty stuff. One of my camp guys is actually doing a study on that. We had a series of sensors on the roofs of a couple of our vehicles, and he hasn't got around to crunching the numbers yet, but he was sampling the air for carbon monoxide in particular. And it's scary in some places.
That's an interesting problem because they are those little Hondas for a smaller camp that can get by on a Honda like 3,000 watt generator. It's so much cheaper than the minimum, you know, like diesel, and organizing a hub and getting distro with all the cables and the spider boxes and stuff.
Yeah, but it's another point towards sustainability because they use less for what they put out. I mean, it's all a game of numbers and figuring this out and maintaining them, because if you don't maintain your generator, it's going to be dirty. It's going to run dirty. So yeah. But we're getting better, and that's, you know, we can only just try. There's what else, you know?
distro is another can of worms, but that's a whole other campfire.
I'm hoping that people turn off their air conditioner at home when they come to the burn. That'll save some emissions over there.
And Claire, I was wondering, is there a site on the Burning Man, you know, in all the Burning Man pages about exactly what you're saying regarding generators, and like the bigger generators are cleaner?
Yeah, there is. It's kind of buried in oh, that's going to close in a minute.
Yeah,
this thing just popped up in front of me. Yes, there is. It's buried in the petrol PSAs, and that's one of the things that we're trying to work on. This is one of the things I work on in the winter for Hotspot, is trying to update those and clarify them. And now we have Hive. I'm hoping, because I work with that, we're going to be able to migrate some of this information. It is there, but I'm sorry, you do have to search for it at the moment.
Okay. Well, we're going to be cut off, but I want to say thank you. We have our feedback form in the chat here, but please come back to the main room. We thought we might just talk a little bit about some of the things we learned. Claire, I might be checking in with you because I'm also working on the placement newsletter, and maybe we can get something about that into the placement newsletter, which would be then put out to everybody. So I just wanted to say that before we get cut off.
Were you one of the people that put up that slide about 5 hours and 5
Oh, for the volunteers?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Wicked, the other mayor of Illumination Village.
I didn't quite follow that. What were you guys communicating there?
So that was something per the video. I think it said something about 5 hours. The org had put. Oh, go ahead. He's on here, so you can talk to it.
So, like before we got put out F&G, because we were complacent we got a little complacent. We were only lit up maybe Tuesday and poop party, which is Sunday. And so
dark hole.
Guys are a big camp and you kind of like, you're just a dark hole. And so I was fortunate enough to have a really good friend during the pandemic who was on the virtual Burning Man. She just happened to be my placement rep. I had no idea. She didn't tell me until a year later when I was telling her I was going to go, be doing the application. And then she said, well, let me just help you go to Campfire Talks. This Campfire Talks Ask a Placer and understand what the new Burning Man, like what the changes are. Understand what those are. And then that's how you got to turn your whole boat around. And so once I understood, we watched that video. I watched it with Alyssa, and I was like, we got our email back. I kind of panicked. I'm like, oh my God, we are not wanted by anybody in Burning Man. And then after I sit down with Alyssa, she helped me breathe, process, and go, hey, this is pretty direct email from Burning Man. Yeah, let's organize this. It was her clear-headed thinking that helped me come up with like, okay, this is good. We watched it. And then that's how I started to communicate to my village saying, we got to turn this ship around. And this is the way we got to do it. It's no longer.
It's a big culture change. Yeah. Because we have like a lot of veteran burners, who are just like, why do we have to work so hard for the org? Like they're using our art to, be Burning Man, but it's like, no. Like we're doing this to show the community what we are all about. It's showcasing us. It's showcasing our hard work, our 20 plus years of being on the Esplanade. Like we are back on the Esplanade. We're owning the Esplanade. Like this is what we're here for, so it was just changing a lot of mentality, honestly. And our weekly calls that we would do with the leads, the village leads or the camp leads, sorry. The camp leads really helped kind of like answer questions. And every week we'd get more buy-in from more leads. And, so it was really great to kind of get everyone's support on that, as a team, as a village, not just like, a handful of people like, okay, I guess we'll have to do this. And with the volunteer hours, what we ended up doing is requiring every person within that paid dues, they had to do 2 3-hour shifts, and these shifts were just for the village for support with art or art docents, but very village centric 24/7 activities. And that was new. And we got a lot of pushback from that one because, people are like, well, I'm already doing Ranger. I'm doing, this for the org.
Oh, we lost her. Yeah. So she's doing that for the org. They have their own honorariums.
Whatever. And it's like, well, listen, like 24/7 interactivity. What does that require? It requires people to run it. So like, again, buy-in from them and just asking for help, like, hey, listen, like we really want to be on Esplanade. Like last year, we were all the way out there. I got there on Thursday. I didn't go to Burning Man until Tuesday. And I say going to Burning Man is like going onto the playa. I didn't get to Burning Man. And that's only because I had to DJ. I had 2 sets that night. And that's the only reason I went from work to work,
Well, the 5 hours and 5 people metric that you guys had on that slide, was that something you communicated to your village, or how did that metric come into play?
I took that and I actually sat down with my Miranda initially to develop the slides, and she pointed it out to me. And then I sat down with Alyssa, and Alyssa goes, yeah, we got to put that on there because that's what Miranda wanted, who was our placement. And so it's still fuzzy, right?
I think it's an old slide, honestly, because like we ended up going with 3
hours. Yeah, we changed it
to volunteer shifts.
People. But the way they put it in that video, if you watch the video, she says, how do they measure time? What they expect. And in the video, it was a sewing camp. And they were saying the sewing camp, if you're there and there's 5 of you, we have an expectation of 5 hours a day that you have to be going. That's what we're looking for. And I go, oh, well, there you go. It's kind of 5 hours per day for the sewing camp. And then they could be shut down for the rest of the week. And so, I mean, we're such a large camp, it just turned into 27, but I still kind of hit it like, okay, this is what they want. And then we kind of changed the numbers around.
Yeah. So all the volunteering and all those shifts and stuff helped out with Burnout, because we had, our art docents you know, checking in. We had our volunteer coordinator person who like would check in with people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Passion
we had
group.
the passion groups.
Miranda told me, the Facebook rep said, hey, Joey, you guys need to create passion groups. And she says, you call them passion groups because it weeds out all the power troopers. Nobody wants to be in a passion team. So if you put it into passion group, then you're going to get people who are really dedicated to those causes. And then from there, she kind of gave me an outline. I powwowed with Priscilla, and then we came up with like, okay, here are some ideas. And then we presented it out to the village, and we said we need a passion team for Leave No Trace. We need a passion team for activities. We need a passion team for this. And the Miranda said, go into the meeting, set the agenda, but then you step back and let them take the ball and run with it. And then they come back with you at the end, like, here's the outline, here's the results. And that just helped to divide and conquer. I mean, we had money to give out, so we created a brand new passion team for giving grant money out. And they loved it. That one was like packed. Every artist wanted to be in that one. And they came up with a really good system for rating it, like off the honorariums. And then, passion teams.
Delegation is
delegation's key.
Is key. Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? How big are your camps? I'm just trying to get a sense of what these numbers mean.
Oh, so we have like 250 people in the village, 19 camps. So the camps vary in size. We had a camp with like 30 people. We had a camp with like 8 people, you know, so they just vary in size, and it just adds up to
4 people.
They're like all sizes.
4 people in their camp. However, they have one of the best activities. They have like these real chill out Moroccan tents, 2 carports. And so that's what it was really, we knew that was a good activity count. If they could just be open and let people with the air conditioning room chill out. We had the cross volunteers. So all the other camps would volunteer to be able to sit in there to make sure the swamp coolers didn't get tipped over. Because you can't expect the 4 people to be there all the time and not enjoy the burn. So that's why the activities came into play.
Yeah.
The passion teams and so people would volunteer for the day shifts to do those.
A lot of coordinating and volunteering.
And we can also expand this discussion out a little bit to the other theme camp leads who are in here. I'm wondering, because like we're here to talk about kind of leadership burnout and keeping our camp afloat. My other theme camp folk who are in here, what did you do, and how did that go? Yeah, Dreamy, you asked the question. Do you want to kick it off, and we'll go to Laszlo too?
Sure. This year we actually have been wrestling with a lot of this stuff. We used to be a totally ad hoc camp. People would just bring what they wanted and we'd kind of make it work. And then we had this is our first drama we've had in like 20 years, but some people got very upset that they felt like there was a contribution gap. And so we formalized everyone's roles a little more this time. And so we broke it out into like a kitchen lead because we serve food to our people. We had an activities shack lead who tended to the front and made sure that all that ran. We had the build and strike lead who oversaw that whole process. And we just kind of divided things up along those lines and then scheduled people for each of those. Originally, it was going to have to be like 3 shifts per person, which was going to be kind of long. And that was a hard sell. So instead of making it time-based, we made it task-based. We said, once you finish serving your meal, you're done. Go have fun. Once you've done your activity, you're done. So I think that was a pretty good compromise there. Of course, you know, the build and strike people have to build it till it's done as well. And it's just, I think this year we're going to be iterating the process and making sure that we get more coverage in some things and less in others, and that the people in charge don't get burned out, which is, you know, something that I'm interested in as well. But yeah, that's how our year went.
Yeah. And Dreamy, how big is your camp?
30 people, but we're part of a village, which is about 150 people.
Yeah. Cool. Laszlo, what happened to you guys?
Oh man, we had a year. So I'm the camp lead at Orgy Dome. We have about 140 people in camp. It was actually one of our best burns ever. We are a nonprofit corporation, so we have 7 board members. Each one takes 2 12-hour shifts during the week, so they're the backstop before me. Then we have committee leads and shift leads, that run different aspects of the camp. So for each part of our onboarding process is we tell people what's expected when they come to camp with us, and we make it very clear during our town halls during the year and during all of our camp messaging. We require 3 4-hour shifts. That does not include build and strike. Strangely enough, and I guess it's no surprise, we had a lot of people volunteering to do way more shifts than that because we're a very fun camp to run. But it was really good this year because we really formalized finally sort of a process where if something goes wrong, it goes to the shift lead. And if they can't handle it, it goes to the committee lead that's dealing with that particular area. And if they can't handle it, it goes to the board member on duty. And if they can't handle it, it comes to me. And the only thing that got to me this year was the Friday rain. Everything else got handled well on the way up. And it was the first time. The other thing that we changed this year is we made it clear that we required people to stay through Monday to help with strike. And we obviously were going to start with strike on Sunday because it's taken us till Thursday to get everything torn down over the last few years. We didn't start on strike at all on Sunday. It was still too muddy. But we started on Monday, and with about 135 people that were left in camp, we had everything in the truck by Monday at 7 p.m. It was crazy how fast it went. And by the way, we're talking about 2 45-foot trailers. So we had a very good year for that. And the theory is that people will start in the camp, they get onto a committee, they become a committee lead, and then from there they get picked for board spots. And so that's how we avoid burnout. People cycle through 3-year terms. I'm on my 3rd 3-year term, and hopefully this will be my last. But we really want to make sure that we've got the new young blood coming up. There's a acculturation that they get to watch the process work, and that the board selects the new board members. And we do that because we want to make sure that we get what we call get shit done people, as opposed to idea people. We have lots of idea people in camp, lots of them. But get shit done people are really important. So those are our board members and our leads. Behind the scenes at Orgy Dome. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
I'm definitely taking notes. Thank you. I like the committees.
Oh, Buck. And
yes, we have a small camp, I guess I would say. We have 20 people, and we've been going for 7 years. And I'm old, and so I started the camp, and I don't want to be the one to be found face down in the dust someday and nobody knows what to do with the camp. So right away we started with setting up committees. So we have a finance committee, we have a membership committee who also handles ticketing, pooling and all that. So we have several committees, and each one has a lead. And everyone is required to be on at least one of the committees, including all the newbies. And so that way we're always training people coming up. And also worked very hard over the years to develop an operations manual so that, and it's sort of a living document, and anyone can pick that up and they know how everything works at any time. It's always pretty clear. We have decided that we are probably going to take 1 year off and just do the regional this next year. And that feels about right to everybody. It seems that after, 6 times, let's take 1 year and come back again. We felt really great about how everything went this year. We feel like our infrastructure is where it needs to be. We packaged it all up and it's in our storage, and we feel like we could just pull it out and set it up again. We're ready to go. So that's a good place to be. But some of us are starting to feel like, we've been doing it a while, and we want to make sure that other people are just as excited about doing it as we are.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with taking some time off, and I would encourage people to consider that. I know the organization recommends doing it occasionally, individuals or even camps, and have made it clear that taking a year off, you do not lose your place in the food chain or anything, as long as you've done a good job. So I think maybe taking a hiatus is not a bad thing, you know?
Yeah.
We have we do monthly meetings starting in February. And so we're ready to go. We do an acculturation thing at each meeting, as well as committee reports. And so no one has a super hard stuff to do. It's just not all that tough.
Yeah.
Spread it out.
I saw Oleg before, but Buck, I want to ask you a follow-up question to that. What kind of process in your camp or your leadership went towards making the decision to take a year off? How did you guys come to that idea? Did something happen?
No, I don't think anything happened. It was a variety of things. I think with we have an executive committee of 3 of us, and then we have the next, probably the most important person is our infrastructure lead, and as the lead, I just happen to have my 20th wedding anniversary. My anniversary falls in the middle of Burning Man every year, and my husband stopped going after 3 years. He's very supportive, but I thought, well, maybe I will take 1 year off, and it can run without me, so it's not a big deal. Somebody else said, hey, that's not a bad idea. It wouldn't hurt us to take, to take a little bit of time off. And one of the other committees said, yeah, that wouldn't hurt. We can, if we decide to go, we can always find another camp and then come back again the next year. So we just talked amongst ourselves a bit and said, yeah, maybe it's time to rest for a year and come back.
Yeah, almost like once people find out it's okay, or kind of get permission to admit that it's okay to take a year off, people kind of ran.
Yeah. We sort of took a poll and said, how would you feel about this if we, instead of going to Burning Man and going to our regional soak up here in Oregon, what if we just go to soak this year and not go to the playa? And people seem to be perfectly fine with that idea.
Cool. Thanks.
We'll still keep working. We have stuff to do. We'll still have our fundraisers. We got to pay for storage.
Yeah.
Oh, like you had raised.
Yeah. Oh, it's my husband. I'm Angela. I'm just using his account. Just in the subject of taking a year off. I'm as a camp lead, took a year off last year, but I ended up helping 2 other camps with the suggestions and helping with running the camp. And this is our second camp that we run. So we run before bar, and now we have a theme camp, a healing camp where we do yoga, healing modalities, and other services for the citizens of the playa. And I just want to share, we have a really good infrastructure and how we divide the responsibilities in the camp. Each year, before we open up for people to join our camp, we have a survey in which we describe what is our camp about, what is responsibility, and where we ask people what is their talents and what they can bring into the camp. So based on that, it's always easy to assign people to the duties. If somebody likes to cook or somebody likes to play music, or somebody likes to build, so it's much easier to assign people to the certain tasks in the camp based on their responses in the survey, and it's been working very well. And we when we start our survey, we see how much people participate, how many responses on a certain subject. So based on that, it's always easy to pick the leads for the certain area. So who is the more like communicate about the questions and applications or raise the ideas. So that's how we pick the leads for like kitchen, infrastructure, activities, and things like that. And I also find very helpful, and maybe you guys will find it too. We created like a Kahoot game for the newbies, for people who come in for the Burning Man for the first time. So and it's been working very well. So when we have usually before Burning Man, we have a meeting just for the new people, and they supposed to go through survival guide. And then we have this fun activity as the Kahoot, and we also have our members from the camp who've been going to Burning Man for 18, 20 years, like veterans. They come there too to share their wisdom. And it's been actually working well. So people come to that Kahoot meeting prepared, and not like they just don't know what is going on. So this is very useful activity, and it doesn't take that much to create this Kahoot, and you can reuse it every year. So I would strongly recommend for people to do that, to educate virgins. This year, we had, not this year. This year was fine, and everything went well. And I'm a little bit concerned about next year, because I know there is issues with the rental U-Haul trucks. And I want to check how you leads and mayors gonna approach this, because I personally not gonna buy a huge U-Haul truck where I can load my infrastructure. And I just want to check with you guys, maybe somebody have any solutions or suggestions how you're going to be approaching these issues, because it seems like every year it's getting harder and harder to get a rent. And it's not just for the U-Haul trucks. I know some people also renting like a U-Haul as their places where they stay through Burning Man, and cargo vans. So and I know some, and some people want to stay in the like more or less comfortable situation, and the rents for RVs is this skyrocket during that week. So I just want to check with you guys how you're dealing with this type of the situation of the transportation and carrying the goods to the playa.
Yeah. Luca put in the chat, enterprise truck rental encouraged Burning Man rentals.
Yeah,
but they have a limited supplies.
I didn't find a problem with that. So in 2022, I just happened to go by there because I wanted to rent a cargo van. And when I was there, I saw other burners, and they flat out asked me, "Are you going to Burning Man?" Because I was going to try and be cute and deny it. And then when I saw that they were openly renting to other people, I said yes. And then they just basically said, well, we're going to tack on $300 for the engine cleaning or whatever. And then I think they said that if you just want to return it just the way it is, like completely messed up, and you want to have insurance to cover anything that could happen there, it's $500. And then I asked, then I said, well, is the insurance null and void if I go off of a paved road? And they said no. And so I did it like last year, and then I did it again for 2023. I went back to Enterprise, and they had lots of things available. In fact, I switched the size of vehicle I had, and there are all sorts of box trucks, and I saw other burners, coming back to the city. I mean, coming back to and dropping off. So it didn't seem like it was an issue, but that was Enterprise truck rental. So I let people in my camp know that. So we successfully rented them in both Los Angeles and in the Bay Area.
Nice.
We've used Enterprise from the first year, and they've been amazing. And we've never had any problems. We don't tell them where we're going. We tell them it's a 2-week camping trip every year, and then we tell them where it is. I mean, we tell them it's in northern Nevada, and we clean it when we come back, and it's never been a problem for us.
They know where you're going.
Of course they know.
We've rented box trucks and heavy duty pickups every year because we tow our own generator on and off. We've been using Enterprise for the last 6 years. Last year, they hit us with something about 3 weeks before the burn on both our rentals. They said they were going to charge us an $800 cleaning deposit. We raised a bit of a stink. They dropped it to $400, and then we clean them anyway, so they refunded it to us after we were done. We rented one up in San Francisco and one in LA.
And Laszlo, you would put in the chat recommending reserving them in January.
Yeah, the earlier you reserve, the better. Reserve it as soon as you can, right in the beginning of January. Get them to send you an email confirmation. And then every couple months, call and just sort of, remind them you're coming. They get tired of hearing from you. It's like, yeah, we've got your truck. Don't worry. And it's never been a problem.
That's exactly what they do for us. They ask us to check back with them every couple of months, and I reserved it in January, and every 2 months checked with them, and it's fine.
Cool.
Nice. Thank you very much. I used to rent U-Haul, I guess. They just want to rent one way.
Actually, they're worse than that. U-Haul and Budget will both cancel on you last minute. They have a thing which they call their guaranteed rental, which is really just a $25 limitation of damages waiver. So if they rent out your truck, if you get there and they don't have your truck, all they have to give you is $25. I would never use Budget or U-Haul to go to Burning Man.
Yikes. Yeah. Oh, Captain Ron.
I have a question for the group. What are your plans for leadership succession should you decide to retire from your camp or step back?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
My camp goes with me.
So what basically Priscilla is, he wants to know who our next mayors in training are going to be. So basically what we do is
it's like a 3-year.
Yeah, we got a 3-year commitment, and then
I'm ready.
Yeah. But then we kind of prospect for people within the village who want to take on that responsibility. And I do think that the way we organized it and created a really tight knit community has spurred a lot of people who are like, hey, I want to do this now. And so we have mayors in training is what we call it.
That's my goal, to have the 6 different organized leadership groups. That's where we're going to see who the get shit done people are, and those are the ones that will be like, hey, you would be a great mayor. Let me tell you all about it. That's where we'll be recruiting from. Because Burnout, I've been with FLG since 2016 and led a build and a strike on Playa. The strike was not supposed to be me, it was supposed to be someone else, but the person who was in charge of that did not want to do it. So anyways, but so I had to do both, and I was there 17 days. It was a hard build. So doing the mayor thing, I was like, oh, this will be easy. Which with the right support, I think it's just, we've built a really good foundation, and I think every single year it's just going to get better and better, and people are going to say I would love to be the mayor. Because we've implemented a lot of change, building community, getting artists to talk to one another, because we have new artists who don't know how to fill out the FAST form or how to be be fully fire safe. So, you know, having everybody working together has really helped to create a community feeling amongst the separate camps, you know. And a lot of people said like, hey, you know, I really love the way the changes have been made to the village, you know, with all the art being in the front, thanks to Mark designing that. And, you know, and the communication between all the leads and all the camps and stuff. So yeah, it's great.
All the leads and all the camp is really important.
Totally.
That we have the Discord and the Slacks, but it's like once we got the camp leads talking, they all started brainstorming about how they could
make
everybody
things
was
better.
trying to get their activity to cover shifts during the day and night, and then they would partner up.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we could do this thing together. And so we got a lot of people saying this is the first time that they actually felt a cohesion within the village.
Yeah.
And the camps that didn't want to, like my Miranda, she just said it's also time that you guys have got to thin out the ranks a little bit, because we don't want any more vacationers if you're going to be up on Esplanade. And so there were some camps that were like, you know, this is our vacation and we don't really have this buy-in on this. And so they actually chose to go off on their own. And I think next year everybody is like, we know we got to do.
Yeah. Ooh, Luca.
This question is, you know, you mentioned that you called the committees or committee leads, like you called the different groups passion groups, and you use that as a way to motivate people to join them, right?
Right.
And so something I'm sort of grappling with is I have not been a you know, a camp lead or a camp mayor, but both of our previous mayors, why I joined this group, have burned out. And so we are kind of mayorless. And I'm one of those just get it done people, right? And there don't seem to be any others. So I'm assuming that it will fall to me. And so right now I'm trying to figure out how one even puts together, because one thing that I think that our camp is weak in is that we don't really have, it's rather large, between 90 and 120 people, depending on the year, but it's kind of ad hoc. I think like Dreamy said his was, where things kind of flow together and maybe not so well. And so I'm just trying to get my arms around the whole idea, and I'm trying to figure out how to create those passion groups, and then how to really organize that. And if you use like project management software or anything, or if you just really rely on those Slack channels or the Discord and the groups. I hope that the question is clear enough. I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And thank you for asking us. You want to talk to this?
Yeah, let me start off. The passion groups were a challenge until I think everybody knew what the direction, like for our camp, everybody wanted to be back on Esplanade. They knew they didn't like where they were before, and they wanted to be up on the 3 o'clock. And the way I presented it, I was like, okay, we can stay on the burns. You can continue to do what you want to do, or you're going to go up front and it's workman. It's workman now. It's not, I mean, it's workman in a fun way, you know, whatever, how you define fun, squirting people with water, you know, angst, but it's still workman. And she said, don't do committees because you'll get power trippers in the committees. Make it passion groups. And the passion, we had to organize like cats, because I think of the village as a bunch of cats, artists, right? It's like, how do we, they all wanted to be up front. And so once they all agreed they want to be up front, they were open to the suggestions that I was getting constant feedback from Miranda and the placement team. And we just kept on disseminating that message that I was getting to every week to the people in the village, and setting the outline. And then people just started volunteering for what they really wanted to get passionate about. Priscilla really liked the Ride. I think was it Ride Initiative, right?
I love them all equally because they all help me take a layer of responsibility away. That's literally what you're looking for, is just to like have more people to help you, and you can actually say to them like, hey, listen guys, like we're coming back, we know what the situation is at hand, I need your leadership, I need your help, I need this, and create what passion teams or groups you want to break them out in. And you don't have to say like you are the lead of this group, because nobody wants to lead a group. So you can say you guys can co-lead together, and then what you do is that you give them little assignments like, hey, for this week, like I need you to put together the food plan or whatever you guys have working on, yeah, and then okay, show me your progress. Okay, what do you have now? Okay, let's present. And we would have weekly calls, so then we would have each passion group present what they were working on. And and then they were able to actually talk to each other. So someone's having issues with some fire thing, someone's having issues with some I don't know, I'm just giving horrible examples, but they were able to all help each other, work together to get all these things done. And that's what you want. You want people to want to help. And you know what, like if you are having a problem finding the people to help and to do working man the right way, then there's so many people that are just dying to go and dying to get their hands dirty or get into it, so there are the people out there, but just set the expectations like we're doing a shift, you guys, and we need to all be on the same page to help each other. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, you do. You let them know in advance now, what shift you want to do, morning or evening, during the registration process. And they're like, what? So like that's the new thing. And then they already know in their mind they're going to be doing something. Right. And on top of their honorarium or whatever project they're doing. Yeah. So
glad it helps. Thank you. And you can always reach us, like honestly, like I love giving my feedback and helping people that are getting into this kind of role. And yeah, I would definitely be a resource for you if you ever needed to reach out.
Yeah. Understanding your vision though, like one thing they told me at the beginning, they said, focus on your mission. What is your mission? Which we still have to develop for my village again. We got to rewrite it. But I was able to, we all had a mission, or not mission, but the vision was the art. And once we got the vision kind of defined, there's where you get the buy-in. Like you get the buy-in because the vision got created by the team. And then everybody's like, okay, we can do this, and whoever didn't want to do it, they left. Or we thin the ranks a little bit. So
yeah.
Well,
sorry, I'll mute.
No, you're good. Oh, Buck.
I just want to put in a plug for camp support too. I mean, the organization has a lot of really good resources out there, and there are some good boilerplate spreadsheets. There are a lot of things available that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single year. Make it make it easy. Benefit from what everybody else has done on a larger scale, not just from this group, but check in. If your camp could use some mentorship, the Camp Advisory Mentorship Program will assign someone to work with you if you want and help you with the specific problems you have. There are a lot of good resources there, so take advantage of them.
Also, nobody really hit on this, but I wanted to go back to storage and transportation. Captain Ron put a link in the chat for the Burning Man container program, which could be an option going back to that conversation about enterprise.
Cool. Epiphany, you were a little like a robot there for just a second. But just in case people didn't get it, Epiphany was highlighting the Burning Man storage container program, and Captain Ron put a link in the chat to that. Just in case that also maybe figures into people's considerations towards storage and transportation and so forth. Yeah. Captain Ron also added the Burning Man Theme Camp organizers Facebook group in the chat. And thanks, Buck, for the plug for camp support. And camp support and the Campfire Talks and Hive also have a lot of really great shared content. In a bunch of our past Campfire Talks, we've also shared resources about what to do when blank happens. And those are on YouTube and on the Burning Man website archive for people as well. Yeah. Thanks, Sandor. Yay. We're gonna go back to the main group in just a little bit, but I have a quick question for people. What was harder, 2022 or 2023?
2022.
22 was brutal.
Yep.
22.
Whoa, 22, like across the board. Whoa.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say 23.
I say 23 for me.
I say 22. 22 is my first year, like really like mayoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jim Wolf, it looked like it was a 2022 also for you. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. I think for my camp, 2022 was hardest for me. 2023, my co-lead was miserable in the rain. So mixed bag. Very curious. I wonder maybe if we learned some lessons from 2022 that helped us weather the weather a little bit better.
Yeah, 2022 make me take a year off.
2022 called the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a brutal year
Yeah,
for us.
but
We had
it was
generator
fun
problems,
to
we had
return.
leadership issues. We had everything go wrong in 22. So yeah.
But I actually taking a year off and just helping two other camps and having less responsibilities was.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. We have a second poll for everybody to take part in. And while you're doing that, please start entering into the chat. Everyone, please enter it to the chat your takeaways from the breakout session that you just were participating in. Okay, so our poll results are helpful and super helpful. That is awesome so far, and I hope it continues to be helpful as we finish out our event here. Right at the end of our session, Vesper asked which year was harder, 22 or 23. That came back resoundingly at 2022, but then there were a couple that spoke up for 2023. Mark says to bring scuba gear for 2024. Vesper talks about identifying campers' talents and then use that drive for passion groups for committees and tasks. The breakout rooms were recorded, so they'll be added to the whole video of this talk. Once we get it posted, you'll be able to have access to that. So much to learn about fuel, Peter says. Buck says, work to develop passion groups. Post-nuclear family says, no one solution for striking all the different camps, but culture and communication are key. Gary Gibson says, 2000, Freezing Man.
Peter says we can learn to be more self-reliant. Dreamy says, I'll take rain and mud over 100+ degree dust storms and COVID outbreaks any day. And we all agree. Larry says he was in breakout room number 1. So some takeaways, strike deposits. So making the commitment to stay, vested interest, accountability, and clear expectations to contribute and help. Last man standing. Don't arrive during build, but help and able to stay later for strike. Better communication, logistics, and manage expectations for all campmates. And strike lead, having a strike lead to help coordinate. Making contingency plans for schedules of the builders, strikers' earliest and latest dates. Knowing the deadlines, having transportation service in and out. Builder bus for builders and strikers, reduce carbon footprint. Oh.
Can I give a little detail on that, the service thing, just to make it clear from the group?
Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't mean it for the camp. It was a discussion we were having that part of the problems we saw is that sometimes a lot of people need to leave because they're on the burner bus or something like that. And that ends, what, like Monday or something like that. And sometimes, you know, especially in situations like this or others, there's people that would stay for strike, which is always a challenge, but they don't have a ride. And that can become a real problem. And if there was some kind of, you know, like if it would not only lower the carbon footprint, but if there was sort of like a work access pass bus from Reno, plus some kind of bus service that went a little bit later, you know, maybe till Wednesday or something for, you know, the just in case type situations, it might not only make us greener, but a lot, you know, it would just, I think, help. I don't think there's a lot of support and infrastructure for the build and strike teams. There's a lot of stuff during burn itself, but, you know, the people that are working the hardest are kind of like on their own. And we thought that might be an interesting recommendation to give to the org in some way or something, or camps
Nice,
together.
yeah. Good idea. Thank you. And then the last of breakout room number 1 notes include recommending Discord or other team tool over WhatsApp or Facebook so that threads are searchable and you can share links and create channels. It was great for them for the small teams this year. And then some of the previous comments talked about passion groups. Does somebody from Illumination Village want to just say a few words on what that is about?
Sure. So passion groups are just another word for committee. And so I was coached basically saying, instead of setting up a committee where you got people who are on power trips, set up as a passion group. So then you're going to get a pool of people that are just really passionate about whatever it is that you want to work on. And it made sense to me. It made sense to me. And like Priscilla pointed out, it's like, we weren't trying to put one person in charge. We wanted the collective. The mayors, of course, would set the agenda or the objective for the group. And then they would go through and work out everything and come back with like the solution. And if they got stuck along the way, they'd come back to us. But everybody was passionate about what they wanted to be in that group.
Nice, thank you.
And it was of all levels. Like some people had no idea about it and some people did, you know, so they were just like, I know nothing, but I want to learn and I want to volunteer. So that's kind of, and we set those expectations. Like, you don't have to know anything about this subject. Like, we just want you guys to work together. So that was really important. That's something I learned from like being on Flaming Lotus Girls, is that like, we take everyone on, you know, like, and we teach them everything, you know, and yeah, like I led a build like my first real year being with Flaming Lotus Girls. It's crazy. Anyways.
Yeah. I think how Priscilla pointed out, we had people in the village that always wanted to participate more for activities than their own camp. And this gave them the ability to pick what other things they wanted to do. Like they just came out of the woodwork saying, we want to do this, we want to do that. I want to do fireball croquet up the front, or maybe even before we even got to build, somebody says, I'm not really good with a lot of stuff up during the build, but I like to do data in sheets. You guys got work you want me to do online, I can knock that out, and I'm like, great, we could use that help.
It's nice to find the people.
Nice, thank you. We had a phenomenon this year that I don't know if it was discussed in the other breakout rooms, where there were many camps seeking campers before the burn. I don't know if anybody talked about that, but I know, Urian, you had a very well-defined camp mission that seemed to be a success for you in this area. Can you say some more about that?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate that this year, when obviously a lot of camps were looking for campers, we actually had a wait list the whole time, and I don't take any credit for that personally, but I think it speaks to the culture of our camps. Our we're about service and community, and in fulfilling our mission to feed the artists, and everyone has to work in the kitchen so many shifts, and it creates a very tight-knit bond. And we've been around since 2007, so we have some, we're a pretty long-standing camp, and we have some really good veterans, and also always new people. We get about a third new people every year, but I think just that vibe of people really feeling like this is their home, like we're like family, right? So we're the Playa family for all of our campers, and that tight bond, I think, really helped us, because as a camp lead, obviously running the finances is a necessary evil of running a camp, especially when you have a capital intensive camp like Feed the Artist, who has a whole kitchen. That knowing that your camp is going to be fully subscribed makes a huge difference in the planning, because you're not worried about, I need 10 more people to break even, and looking for those people in June or July, God forbid, and having not enough time to acculturate those people into the ethos of the camp really becomes a scramble. And we've been there in other years, but this year we were fortunate that we actually increased our numbers from 75 to 85 because we wanted to do more. We had at least 20 people on a wait list most of the time. So we're very, very fortunate.
Thank you, Urian. And thank you, Wicked Truth and Priscilla, Major Treble, and more for being our invited speakers this evening. Please fill out our feedback form, and our next Campfire Talk will be January 22nd. Make your camp spicy, maximizing engagement, interactivity, and frontage, finding more engagement and less transaction. We also have a Camp Symposium volunteer interest form. If anyone would like to participate or provide content, please fill that out as well. And Peter's dropping those into the chat now. All right. And thank you to the camp support team and Puffy for keeping us together with our breakout rooms this evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you on the Playa again in 2024.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so
Feel free
much.
to
Bye.
unmute and say bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.